Greetings, Bat Family, and welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. You can visit our website, holybatcast.com, or find us all over social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast, you'll find us. If you love the show and you do want to help support us, you can do that. You can do that on Patreon. You go to patreon.com/holybatcast. As always, a big thank you to our patrons. You guys are amazing. I hope you know how much you're appreciated, because you truly, truly are. We're also part of the Real Fans Podcast Network. You can check out those shows at rf4rm.com. And as always, I'm your Bat host, Andy DiGenova. You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, or on Letterboxd. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. Now, last week, we finally did our Dark Knight Rises commentary. So this week, we're going to just have a chat about the updates and the new information or lack of new information we've gotten around the current state of DC films over at Warner Brothers. And there's a lot to get into, lots to talk about. It's going to be fun. I can't wait. And joining me for all that fun is Jamie Drewley. Hey, Jamie. Happy Sunday morning. No better way to kick off the last day of the weekend than having a little coffee and chatting with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's always good to talk to my Bat brother and get a little caffeine on an early Sunday morning. But yeah, the sarcasm and the snark is going to be oozing throughout this one. I can just feel
it. I mean, what are you going to do, you know?
We signed up for this, man. We just got to take the bad with the good, I guess.
It is true. But I mean, I don't regret last week just taking a little step away.
No, not at all.
I mean, maybe we're a little late now, but what are you going to do? It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, and Brendan couldn't even be bothered.
No, he's all got plans and a life and stuff. Sickens me.
Actually, this week I don't think it's his fault. This week I think it's my fault. Because I could only record today because I had plans all weekend.
That's all right, because today is the day that works for me best anyway.
Well, see, perfect. I did it.
I'm tired of bending my schedule around global time zones. It's nice to be
I know
centralized for once.
We need more guests on the Eastern time zone.
But hey, let's start with some good news.
Yeah,
I went to a grocery store chain here called Meijer, which is kind of like a Midwest, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio thing. I don't know if it's in Illinois or not, but their Halloween display is up.
Oh,
and I also heard from, I think it was Joe and Eric were talking in our little chat. They were saying that Target's display is now up. So we're getting into the thick of the season here.
Oh man, I'm so ready. And
we're like 2 weeks away from PSLs. I mean, it's
yes, on. We are. Yes, we are. I mean, and apparently Dunkin' is starting theirs like in the next week or so. They're starting really early, but yeah, Starbucks is until August 31st.
That seems further away than usual, but still gives us 2 full months of the season. Plus, that'll roll up through Christmas with theirs. So
yeah, and I am currently drinking my homemade PSL anyway, so I'm good.
Homemade is great, but it's just not quite.
No, it's not the same. It's not the same. I know, but it'll do. But I tell you what, I did find. I found pumpkin spice whipped cream at Target.
Oh my goodness!
And so that is in my fridge. I bought multiple cans of it.
I got to make sure to get on the pumpkin spice eggnog this year too.
Yeah, so I know it is upon us. I had dinner with Hunter the other day, and I was telling him how you and I have been actively trying to not start Scarathon because we know it's August 14th, and he goes, "You guys are crazy. I just do it." I'm like, "Well, that's fair enough too." So tonight my plan is to watch The Black Phone finally.
Oh, that's so good.
I'm going to sort of count it as a toe dipped into Scarathon.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a little bit of supernatural element, but it's really more of a thriller to me than a horror film. But I mean, it certainly qualifies as either. But we can let that one pass for a pre-Scarathon.
Well, I have to watch it for Halloween Horror Nights because it's going to be at Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh,
and we go to Halloween Horror Nights preview night August 31st. So
I'm jealous.
That's going to be, that's going to be a big day. PSL's in HHN. I'm excited.
And the day that Scarathon officially starts in the RF4RM group. So
see,
I guess we're just christening that the beginning of Halloween.
It is. All right. Anyway, I could definitely talk about Halloween all day, but we got to talk about DC. And before we talk about DC, we got to give a big old thank you to Manscaped. So today's episode is sponsored by our pals over at Manscaped, the leaders in below the waist grooming. And it's back to school time. It literally is here in Florida. Everybody started last week. I was on my way to work and the school traffic was back. I had gotten so used to it not being there. And darn it, that seems early to me. I have no problem with starting Halloween early, but back to school on August, 9th or whatever it was, I was like, what is going on?
It seems
Anyway,
unreasonable.
it seems crazy. Anyway, we want to make sure that you pack the essentials to have the best year yet. The Manscaped 4th Generation Performance Package is just that. Be ready for whatever is in your daily schedule this year. It's the perfect package for your package and includes the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. Fellas, go for the valedictorian of ball trimming. And join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com and use the code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. Truly, that Lawnmower 4.0 is a game changer. You're going to want it. Pick it up. If you don't want to sample the other stuff, I understand, one thing at a time. But I'll tell you, if you're just in the market for a trimmer, you cannot find a better one than the Lawnmower 4.0. So go to manscaped.com. Do some shopping, but if you're going to make a purchase, please use that promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off and for free shipping, because you're saving money and you are also supporting Holy BatCast in the process, and we thank you for that. It really does mean a lot. So do a little Manscaped shopping, and I don't think you will regret it.
I reloaded on some products about 2 weeks ago, and as I was perusing for things to put in the cart, I stumbled across a product that has never come with one of our sampler packs. And I don't know if you've come across this one, but I thought this could be beneficial to me. Being a large person who is part Italian, I do perspire. And they have a foot spray. And it's as good
I did not know about that.
It's as good as any of their other products. I love it.
All right. I guess I'll add it to the list of things to try.
It's good. When you take off your shoes when you get home from work and your kids are like, Dad's feet. Not anymore.
Well,
haven't heard it in a week. So
that's good. That's a gift for the whole Drooly family, actually.
Right. You're doing everybody a favor with this stuff.
Come Christmas, they're all going to open empty boxes and you're like, your gift was me using the foot spray. You're welcome.
But no, I continue to be super impressed with every product of theirs that I've tried. I really enjoy them. My wife always tells me how good I smell, which is what keeps me buying it. So
awesome. That's good to hear. Another option there. But yeah, so folks out there, if you haven't yet, go to manscaped.com, see what you need, see if anything jumps out at you. Again, I'm also a big fan of the shampoo conditioner combo and the body wash. Those are great because you're going to need those anyway. So you might as well buy the nice stuff, treat yourself, and get 20% off with Batscaped. So don't forget to get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BATSCAPED at manscaped.com. And so we would certainly appreciate you doing that. Throw a little something at Manscaped and buy something for yourself in the process. We would appreciate that. All right. So it's been 2 weeks since, maybe 1.5 weeks since the cancellation of Batgirl and all of the fallout that has happened since, with David Zaslav taking over as the new CEO of WB Discovery. Is it WB Discovery? Maybe something like that. I can never remember what they're going with the final one. Or Warner Brothers Discovery? Yes, it's Warner Brothers Discovery. And everybody was like, oh, well, in a few days, we're going to have the earnings call, and he's going to share his plans for DC. And they had the earnings call on August 4th. And of course, he was immediately asked about Batgirl. And he shared a lot of vague plans with no concrete plans, is the way I took it. And so he said that they are going to restructure DC and create a team with a 10-year plan focusing just on DC that would be similar in structure to what Alan Horn and Bob Iger put together very effectively with Kevin Feige and Marvel.
So pretty much what most of us have been calling for right along anyway.
He also said something about he said something about Black Adam, Aquaman 2, and The Flash. He said they're all great and we can make them even better. He said, "Oh, we've seen them, we think they're terrific, and we think we can make them even better."
That sounds kind of, I don't know if ominous is the right word, but I would chew on a fingernail a little bit as I hear that.
Do you know what do you know what God, it's terrible. Do you know what I hear is, we've seen them, we think they're terrific, we think we can make them even better. That's what I hear.
Yeah. I don't know if that means reshoots. I don't know if that means the next movies in line after them. I don't know how to take that exactly, but given this guy's free swinging axe right now, I don't know that I feel comfortable with it.
Um so I'm pulling these sort of recaps from both Variety and from the Hollywood Reporter because they both wrote really nice, comprehensive articles about the entire slate and everything that's happening and what we know and what we don't know. And I do think that the bottom line right now is we don't know a lot. That's the only promises or info that Zaslav has given is, oh, they want to put someone in charge of DC. They want to restructure. They want to have a 10-year plan like Marvel. And he at least seems committed to Black Adam, Aquaman 2, and The Flash, shockingly enough. And so it seems like those are all safe. And then as this happened, like with all this drama at WB or at DC, right there in the midst of it all, they officially announced Joker 2. So Joker Folie à Deux coming out October of 2024. So in over 2 years, and that Lady Gaga is confirmed as Harley Quinn.
That's the best DC news I've heard in a minute.
And when that came out, I was like, I don't know, I'm like, that's nice, but that does not do a lot to quell my fears as to what's happening over there. I just felt like it was a pretty weak attempt to try and distract from the mess that was happening of like, oh, but Joker 2 is coming. I'm like, well, great. But come on, guys. Like that is not, it's not enough. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's so separate from everything else anyway that it doesn't do anything to extinguish any worry that I have for the shared universe portion, which I still very much want to happen.
Yeah. So some other things here. This is the Variety article. We're starting here. I'm going to just kind of give you the high level points, and then we can talk about them. He didn't really talk about the current plan for DC Films that has been, in the middle of getting implemented over the leadership of Walter Hamada. It does feel like they're going to throw that away and start again. They greenlit Joker Folie à Deux, but apparently the first movie was made for what, $50-60 million, depending on who you believe. Yeah. It was initially reported at 50. I think after it came out, they said it was 60, whatever. Close enough. But apparently the new one is going to cost upwards of 150 because both Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix are supposed to be getting $20 million each, and Lady Gaga is getting $10 million. So just to pay the three of them, you're at the budget of the first film. And so Variety estimates that the movie's going to cost 150. So there you go, almost triple the budget of the first film. They also talked about the Batman 2. They put in a little note here that caused some people to panic, but I wouldn't panic. But they said that Matt Reeves is on track for the sequel with Robert Pattinson, but the project remains in development and does not yet have a green light. People freaked out about that, but a movie doesn't get a green light until there's a script and a budget. Because that's what the studio's greenlighting is. This script, this budget. Okay, now we're going to make it. So it means that, yes, it's in development and it's in the works, but it won't be ready to move forward until they know what it's going to cost. And then some other films that have been in development, but there's been no new news are Wonder Woman 3, the Superman movie that Ta-Nehisi Coates was writing, Zatanna, and Static Shock. They've abandoned straight-to-streaming DC films, which we, of course, already assumed, but it does feel like, as of now, Blue Beetle, because it has $100 million budget and has been moved from streaming to theatrical, it does feel like it is on track to open in theaters in 2023. There's been a lot of more info about Batgirl. It does feel like a pretty safe bet now that the Batgirl cancellation was all about getting the tax break and not about the quality of the film. I think there was some I don't know what the right word is. I'm sorry, it's early. Misconstruing of that, because misconstruing, that's not a word. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's like
We get the point.
The initial report was, oh, it's going to be bad. And then all this other news came out. It's like, actually, no, it was fine. It just, it was more valuable as a write-off because there was going to be no direct revenue from it to go to HBO Max. And I even heard that apparently as part of the merger, they have to bundle up all their losses because of the merger, and that gives them like the tax break. And so they wanted to bundle this and Scoob Holiday Haunt into those losses. So the losses are higher, which gives them a higher tax break. So it really does feel like it's a 100% a bookkeeping thing and has nothing to do with the creative, has nothing to do with the movie. But there was some back and forth about the middling test scores of a 10-week director's cut. But then all these other reports are like, yeah, but it had the same scores as Black Adam, it had the same scores as Shazam 2, it had the same scores as It. It had very normal scores for the very first cut of a movie. And so it's not that it was terrible. And I think that was a lot of something a lot of people misunderstood, is they're like, oh, so Black Adam's terrible too. It's like, no, what they're saying is that the first cut of a movie testing in the 60s is pretty normal. So it's not that the Batgirl was trash. It's just that like it was, the first cut was just barely thrown together.
And this would be a cut with it would be what they call like a work print cut, right? Where they don't have finished special effects in certain spots. And
right.
It's hard to give a 10-point rating to a movie that's in that stage of production.
Yeah. And so what they said is, in order to get it big enough to feel like they should release it theatrically, it would have been expensive reshoots, and they didn't want to do that. So that's why they canceled it. They'd rather take the write down. It says the Black Canary standalone movie is still reportedly in development.
I ain't holding my breath on that one, because that doesn't feel like it's going to be a big spectacle film more than what Batgirl would have been, at least in my own head.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it says the Warner Brothers Pictures group chiefs, Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi, they are trying to mend fences with Leslie Grace. And that means trying to get her to play Batgirl in something else, or at least be in another WB film. Which is nice, but what are they going to do for the directors of Batgirl? Like, I feel like you need to mend that fence too. But again, it wasn't their decision, so they're sort of trying to do what they can, based on what their boss did.
The petty side of me tells me that, the angel and devil on the shoulder thing, it's like one side is saying, I hope she tells him to kick rocks and F off, but the other side is like, I still really want to see her as Batgirl, so I hope she does it.
Yeah.
I understand either way.
Right. I
think she's too early in her career to, I don't know her as a person, obviously, but, most people at that stage in their career aren't going to be, a stand-up force of independence against a major studio to put their foot down and say what they want to say. It doesn't feel like the best career move for her.
Right.
But if she does it, I ain't even going to be mad.
And then they talk about who could maybe take the role as the head of DC, and the name that was put out was an example of Greg Berlanti. As they said, it has been loudly whispered as a possibility for the role, but no one from WB has actually approached him, and he has not pursued it, and insiders believe he wouldn't even be interested. So that was another thing that turned into clickbait of like, Greg Berlanti might be the head of DC, and it's like, no, they're using it as an example of someone who could be, but it seems like there's no actual work being done to make him that person.
So much of this news now that breaks from what it really was initially reported as to what is actually being translated from it really makes me understand the ADD problem in this country.
Mm-hmm.
because people don't seem to be reading carefully enough. Like they read the headlines and then they just run with it. And I think these clickbait sites and such, I think they know that because
Yeah, well, and that's just it. It's like this is one article, and from this one article, these other sites have pulled like 15 headlines from a sentence like that and made it sound like oh, the Batman 2 is in development but hasn't been greenlit yet, and that became its own headline and its own clickbait. Or Greg Berlanti is an example of somebody who could take the head of DC even though he hasn't actually been approached. Like they took those one little sentences from this article, and yes, you're right. Like it's just they've become their own clickbaity headlines.
it's irresponsible journalism, and shame on us for falling for it as much as we do.
Yep, that's why you have to actually go back to the source. Um so then there are so apparently DeLuca and Abda would like Walter Hamada to remain in charge of DC Films, but apparently he's very unhappy. I guess he almost walked when Batgirl was canceled, but they have convinced him to stay at least until Black Adam, and then after that it seems like it'll be up to him whether he sticks around or not. And then what else does it say? It says other things that apparently still seem to be safe for now are the Penguin Show with Colin Farrell, although there's been murmurs that that's going to go to HBO, not HBO Max. It's going to go to HBO. James
Doesn't
Gunn still,
HBO Max have all of HBO's content
yeah,
anyway?
yeah. Um,
Because
James Gunn
like
is,
Game of Thrones and House of Dragons is all considered HBO, but it's on HBO Max the second that it airs
yeah,
on
yeah,
HBO. So I'm not terribly concerned with that.
yeah. James Gunn still says Peacemaker 2 is going to happen. Um, it still says that the Green Lantern series is moving forward, which we've heard nothing about.
I'm not holding my breath there. I'm burned. I've been burned with the Green Lantern property more than I have the Flash movie at this point. So yeah, I kind of have those two in the same pile.
There was a DC anthology series that Kevin Smith was working on with Greg Berlanti, Strange Adventures. That's been canceled.
That's a shame. That could have been fun.
Yeah. Harley Quinn, they said it seems to be safe, which, take that as you will, but it does feel like Titans and Doom Patrol are both on the chopping block after their new season's premiere.
I'm not surprised by that.
And then J.J. Abrams is still planning a Justice League Dark series. And so that still seems to be alive too.
Okay. Now, that one, from my own perspective, I would think they would just leave alone and let him do what he wants to do because he's a big enough name. They don't want to burn the bridge, if you know what I mean. Like, we've got J.J. Abrams in house to work on a project. We're not going to step on his toes and just kind of let him roll. We're not going to pull a Batgirl situation on him or tell him that, we want something more cinematic than this or any of that crap. I would think they would kind of give him almost carte blanche to do what he wants to do with it. That's my own take. I have nothing to back that up with other than just my feeling about it.
Right. So those are kind of the high points. But the article is called "Inside the Confusing State of DC." And I think that is probably the best way to sum it up. That I don't think is a clickbait headline. It is very confusing right now. And we didn't get a lot of clarity from anything that Zaslav has said, other than, again, to me, vague promises with no actual real solid substantial plans to back them up at this point. All he said is, oh, we're going to put together a 10-year plan. That great, good. Let me know when you do. And let me know when you got it together, because everybody had a 10-year plan until they didn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
So right now, like it seems like they haven't canceled that much. But again, it all feels like it's so up in the air. And so I hate to do it, but I almost feel like I'm going to become you, which is I almost don't believe it, at least especially for like the next year while they get their shit together. Like, I don't believe anything's coming really until I get to see it. Because any of these things could get killed any day of the week. And it seems like this is a guy who's obviously not afraid to do so.
And at this point, even things that are virtually finished aren't safe. So I mean,
right,
what are
yeah,
we supposed to think?
exactly. So and we talked about it when we talked about Batgirl, is like, to me, it just it really does just dampen my enthusiasm for anything from DC at the moment, because I just don't know what the hell's going on over there. And the fact that this guy would rather alienate talent and scrap a nearly finished movie for a tax write down doesn't give me a lot of confidence in his creative instincts. He seems very much a businessman, and if the tax write down takes priority, I'm not super psyched that that's the guy in charge. And so
It's hard for me to be any kind of happy or enthusiastic about it at this point either.
So I don't know. I want to be enthusiastic. I want him to sort out the mess, and I do want there to be a plan that we can believe in, that then he will prove that he will have to prove that he is willing to stick to. Because again, Zack Snyder had a plan until BVS was so divisive, and then all of a sudden that plan got screwed up, And every plan since then, in the past 6 years, has barely gotten to start until they have to change midstream anyway. And that's sort of what they're saying here, is Hamada had a plan and he hasn't even finished trying to put in his plan, and it's getting changed too. So it's like, yeah, it's great to say you got a plan, but you got to show me you're actually going to, commit to it. And it's going to be a good one. Everybody's been chasing Kevin Feige, not just him, but his success, and nobody's been able to do it. So it's, again, of course that's what you want. Doesn't mean that's what you can make happen. And I'm sorry, but the guy from Discovery, is he the one who's going to make it happen? I love Shark Week as much as the next person, but is that, what experience can this guy point to that is like, oh no, I'm the one who's going to sort out this mess, as opposed to all these actual motion picture executives who haven't been able to do it for the past 6 years. Now I'm going to be the one, the guy who makes nature documentaries. Or he doesn't even make them. He just writes the checks for other people to make them.
But I mean, at this point, to me, he almost sounds like an Axeman, because, one of his first things he does is cancel a Scooby-Doo and a Batgirl movie that are done. And according to information that was shared by, I think it was Eric that was talking about it, this guy launched like CNN Plus for whatever it was, however many hundreds of millions of dollars invested, and killed it the next day.
Yeah.
Like he sounds like an Axeman.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I will say, like, I'm trying to be hopeful about this. I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm trying to hope that, yes, what he's doing is he's making hard decisions so he can organize the mess. And so that way we can have something that, we can believe in moving forward. And I hope that's the case. But yeah, like, he's not afraid to make the hard decision. So I guess I'll give him some credit for that. Like, it takes a certain amount of balls to go, I'm canceling these things, even though they're almost finished, even though they've already been paid for. I'm canceling them anyway. I guess I'll give you some credit for that, of like, man, okay, you're not afraid to take a big swing, but I sure hope to hell you know what you're doing, because it just looks really, really bad.
That's exactly it. That's what I was going to say. It's hard for me to give him credit for that, although I see your point and I understand it. But until I know that this guy's construction work is as good or better than his demolition work, it's kind of hard for me to support it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if he hires somebody to be the Warner Brothers version or DC version of Feige, I hope the person he hires has enough conviction and fortitude to kill something in the script stage, instead of getting something written, starting to shoot, and then finding out that this thing's going to be another divisive mess, and then having to recalculate and redo everything on the fly like that. Mm. See, I think even Star Wars has this problem to an extent. If you look at Rogue One and Solo, I mean, these are movies that were well into production, if not nearly finished, that had to go back and kind of start over again.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Warner Brothers isn't the only studio having these problems in this day and age.
Yeah.
It's just the one that gets the most news about it.
Yeah.
But I would hope that whoever is ultimately hired to be this DC studio head can be decisive enough to make the decision before it proceeds, like reading the script carefully enough to say, this is going to trigger this reaction from core audience people. So we need something that appeals to the core audience as well as the general audience, because those are the two things combined that make these films a financial and, in most cases, critical success. We have to have somebody that knows what they're doing in that respect, that can say, we've got the formula, we've got the script, we've got everything right before they put the camera to the first thing. That's my position on it. Mm-hmm. Because frankly, I'm tired of these false starts.
Yeah.
I'm over it. I'm so over it. It just makes me sick.
Well, and I do think that that's why it's hard to be like, oh, yay, it's going to all work out, because we've been here before, you know?
Exactly.
And we've seen, and we've seen the stumble so many times, especially in the past 10 years, where it's like, at this point, I'll believe it when I see it. And I hope it's true. And I hope they pull it off. And I hope that they wrangle things and get it into a very organized place. But it's just, yeah, you know, like I said it on Batgirl, or when we talked about Batgirl, that's what the last few guys tried to do. And they weren't even given the chance, you know? Oh, and that's what I was going to say. It's like, so it was like Zack Snyder had a plan. It all fell apart because BVS was divisive. For BVS fans, I love that movie too, but let's not pretend it's not divisive. It was. Yeah. And then Jeff Johns and John Burke had a plan, and they were in power like a year at most. And then they both were given like nothing. They weren't even given time to do anything new. Because another movie underperformed. I don't even remember what it was. It might have been Suicide Squad. I don't remember, but or it had a mixed reaction. And so then they were like, oh, well, you're going to go both be producers anywhere. You're not in charge of DC anymore. And then it's Walter Hamada. And now he's got a plan. And his plan is like in the middle of trying to get things in order. And they're like, nope, never mind. New boss, new plan. So like, how many new plans? And when is it going to happen? And so I think that's why, like, there are fans out there who were like, great, this is great news. And I'm like, I wish I could be that enthusiastic about it, but I can't until you give me something real. Right now, again, it feels like vague promises from a politician. It doesn't mean anything until you actually give me something of substance of what you're actually going to do. What does it mean? And what happens moving forward? And because all of that is so up in the air, and again, that's the headline in Variety, and that's the headline in the Hollywood Reporter, is just confusion is the key word. Of course, I'm still going to go see these movies. I'm still excited to see Black Adam. I'm still excited to see Shazam 2. I'm still going to go see them, but there's just that thing in the back of my mind of like, what happens next? Like, do these matter anymore? Are they getting thrown out? Like, or, is it, who knows? And because of there's just so much unknown about it, I just am like, I'm super, I don't know, timid, reluctant. I don't know what the right word is, but I'm just sure. Yeah. I'm just not like feeling it at the moment, because it's like, this is our favorite universe. These are our favorite characters, and we want them all to be in like a rock solid place and standing right up there next to Marvel as like the two main brands in entertainment, as they should be. And that hasn't happened, and so far, I'm not convinced that this is going to work either. And I hope I'm wrong. Again, a year from now, hopefully we'll get new information, and they'll find this new head of DC Entertainment, and they'll put their plans in place, and they'll map it out, and here's what's going to happen. And then I'll be like, you know what, great. It seems like they're figuring it out. Awesome, I can be excited again. But until that happens, I'm not.
That's it. A 10-year plan. Okay, let's go with that for a second. What is the 10-year plan? 1 movie a year, 4 movies a year, all shared universe stuff that's going to, be all connected in the Feige phrasing? Or is it going to be, we're going to get a Joker and the Batman, and then we're going to get 2 of the shared universe movies? I mean, where's this at? Because on a 10-year plan, that leads me to believe that must be again, the only formula I really have to base this on is the Feige formula. Is that one phase? Is that two phases? Am I going to be almost 60 years old the next time I see a Justice League movie on a screen? Because as much as I want it, I mean that's kind of a scary thought to me. I don't want to wait that long. If I have to, so be it. I'll live hopefully that long, but I don't know. At the same time, I don't want a Justice League movie like next year either. I want them to take a correct approach. And I'm not even saying doing a Justice League movie first and then branching some solo movies out of it is the wrong answer, because I don't think that the formula has to be introduce the four characters individually and then do a team up movie. I don't think that has to be the way it's done. I want to know. I want to feel the plan. I want to know whether or not I feel in my heart and my gut that I'm comfortable with that plan before I think to myself, yeah, I think we finally got the ship pointed in the right direction. So I think you and I are on the same page with that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also worth noting that in the earnings call, they did pull up this graph and it made the rounds. And on the graph, they talked about like their key franchises. And right there at the start was the Bat logo, the Wonder Woman logo, and the Superman logo. Those are right there as the key franchises. So there really does seem to be a focus on the Trinity, which is great. But then the question is like, even how does that work? Like, is that Bat logo, is that box checked by the Pattinson Batman, who cannot cross over with the other two? Like, is that your Batman, or are you going to still try to have two the way the last plan was supposed to be? Wonder Woman, is Gal moving forward? Does she continue to be our Wonder Woman? And then what is Superman? Obviously, that's been a conversation this whole time, is who's our Superman? Are we starting from scratch? Like, it's great that those are your priorities, as they should be. Those are, money in the bank. But even that, like, what does that mean? Are those three together? Are they three separate franchises? Like, what? Because there's no backup information, it just leads to more questions. And then they also said some very tone deaf things about, or he did, about how, like, oh, look, see, HBO Max skews for men and Discovery skews for women. And that caused a huge uproar of like, are you kidding me? Like, are you saying, give me a freaking break? Like, come on. What year is it?
It's all men watching Pretty Little Liars.
It's ridiculous. It was ridiculous. It was, oh man, like I cannot believe they shared that slide and tried to make that case. And I'm like, dude. And because it even said like, it was like HBO Max is about like immersive storytelling, which appeals to men, and Discovery is about like comfort watching in the background, which appeals to women. And like a lot of women I know very rightfully are like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't like stories. Is this what you're saying? What the hell are you talking about?
It's like my wife watched every single episode of Game of Thrones right next to me in a
It's
chair
madness.
in bed. So
I was like, what the heck? Like, how? Oh my god! Like, how tone deaf do you have to be? That's just so stupid. Anyway, so there's that.
The line from Clerks about broad generalizations or generalizations about broad rolls through my head as you say this.
Yeah. So the other thing that Zaslav said, I've moved on to the Hollywood Reporter article, is he said, we've done a reset. He said, DC is something we can make better. We're going to focus on quality. We're not going to release anything before it's ready. And then that did lead to some speculation of, will they move release dates? It seems like Black Adam is coming out on schedule. I guess on the latest schedule it's coming out, because like promotion is in full swing for Black Adam at this point. There's merchandise on the shelves. There are magazine covers. It's not that they couldn't delay it, but it seems like they're not going to at this point. But again, silver lining to all this confusion is at least Zaslav sees to identify that DC is a priority, that DC is the most important brand they have in their catalog. And so the good news about that is that we will still be getting DC content. It just might change and it might be different, but it's not going to stop coming because it's just too valuable an IP to not take advantage of.
Absolutely. Again, when you go on HBO Max and they have their hub listings, they have HBO Max Originals, HBO, and the third one is DC. It's right there. You see it every time you scroll through the hubs. Mm-hmm. So it means something to somebody somewhere.
Yeah. But we were talking about like the HBO Max series. There were reports of like Doom Patrol and Titans have been canceled, and then the reports of like, no, they haven't officially been canceled, but it seems like they might. Again, to me, that wouldn't be surprising, but the bright side of that is it seems like the fourth seasons of both shows are in production, so it seems like at least we'll get those final seasons.
Maybe.
And I hope that if right, I hope that if that is the case, if those are the end, that they know in time to write their final seasons to be an ending of sorts. And then there was also back and forth about Gotham Knights has been canceled. Nope, never mind, it hasn't. And that's one where it's like, no, that one you can cancel. It's fine. Like,
yeah, we can let go of that.
yeah,
I
I'll trade you Gotham Knights for a Batgirl.
Right. I have not talked to a single person. And granted, I tend to roll in fanboy circles, and when there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying fanboys are negative. I consider myself one, and I wear that badge with pride. So please don't take me as saying that's a negative. But the fanboy circles I roll in, I have yet to see a single positive reaction to this show. A single one.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, I don't know who they're making that for, because the general audience is going to be way too confused to understand that this is superhero related if they're not into the lore.
Mm-hmm.
And the fanboys are going to be disappointed because it doesn't look like it's enough into the lore, and they're monkeying around with characters too much or whatever. I don't have a good feeling about it. And apparently neither does anybody else that I've talked to.
No, not really. So, yeah, a lot of these things, I think are officially still moving forward, are officially in development, but I do think we will see more bodies fall before this is all over.
I'd be surprised if we didn't.
Yeah.
And I listen, I hate to say this out loud, and it's probably a very just negative gut reaction, but at this point, I'll truly be surprised if Blue Beetle makes it. I want it to. I want it to happen, but I'll be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 50-50 on it. I feel like what it has going for it is that it's already been shot, but then again, that didn't help Batgirl. And that they had already sort of bumped it up to make it more theatrical. So I'm hoping that will be enough to save it. But yeah, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised about anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they really crank it to 11 as far as like post-production and reshoots with it to give it that epic scale or what have you, I think it certainly increases the chances. But as of right now, its budget's within $10 million of what Batgirl was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't feel good about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wish I did, but I don't.
Well, and the same thing about like, oh yeah, the Black Canary thing is still moving forward. It's like, I don't know. It's been awfully quiet in this,
Are we going to get $150 million Black Canary solo film? Does that even seem remotely reasonable to you?
No.
It sure doesn't to me.
Well, and again, like, there's even some inconsistency with the messaging because, like, I swear when all of this started, Batgirl was too expensive for what he considered worth it for streaming. $90 million was too much for streaming. But then again, Scoob was $40 million, which feels like a lot more reasonable number for streaming, and he canceled it anyway, too. Why? Because he got the tax rate down.
Okay, I'm going to open the door. I'm going to kick myself for doing it, but I'm going to open the door. I question, and I'm by no means a business or accounting expert, especially not at the level that a movie studio would be, but I wonder if Flash was too expensive to get a tax write-off on it. In other words, they were capped at a certain number that they could write off. Because at this point, we're somewhere floating in the midst of 250 to 300 in that movie. We have to be. As a finished product, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that movie really set in such a way that they don't want to let go of it because of the potential of what it has to do for the universe going forward? In other words, being the key to resetting, if you will.
Yeah.
There's a reason that movie didn't get the axe instead of or along with those other two.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that reason is.
Well,
somebody like Mark Hughes may know because they have a better understanding of that angle of the business. I don't have that grasp, so I don't know. But somewhere along the line, there's an important reason why Flash didn't get canceled, because that movie has been a burr in the ass of this studio and we as fans at this point. I really don't care if the movie ever happens at this point. And I know that sounds horrible to a lot of you, but I'm over it.
Well, we're about to talk about that. I because there's been reports on that too. But I will say this: the two projects that Zaslav has canceled outright immediately were both going to HBO Max directly.
Okay,
that's because, yes, they would drive people to watch HBO Max. They might even drive some new subscribers to HBO Max, but there is no direct income that will be attributed to those two films because they're on a streaming service.
Okay.
So when it's all is said and done, if they had sent Batgirl to HBO Max, they can't say, "Oh, we spent $90 million on Batgirl, but it made us $250 million." They can't say that because it went to streaming. So there's not a very clean return on investment that can be reported. That's why I think those two were victims, is because they're like, well, we know we get this credit if we claim them as losses, as opposed to a very squishy, vague idea of what they might have brought to HBO Max. For a theatrical film, which is where Zaslav's priorities are, they can. There is a literal box office number of like, no, this is how much this movie made. And that is, I think, a huge differentiator. Is you're going to know what your return on investment is for anything that's released theatrical, because you can actually go, oh, well, this is how much it made in the box office. This is how much it made worldwide. This is how much it made through merchandising, et cetera, et cetera. You have direct flows of cash that can be attributed to that film. And I think that's one part of it. And I think the other part is, yeah, I mean, it's still more than twice as much as Batgirl that's been put into that movie. It's reportedly right now, it's $200 million. That's what everybody says it is right now. When it's all said and done, I would not be shocked if it was actually 250 or whatever, because that's usually what happens is they report a budget, and then after the movie comes out, we find out the real number. Like the Batman was always $100 million until it came out. Then all of a sudden it was $2. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Flash is higher than 200, but for now they keep saying it's a $200 million movie. But I think that's another big part of it. I'll also say this is, Batgirl got canceled. Right now, the plan is still to release The Flash. And I see a lot of fans go, oh, so you cancel Batgirl, but not The Flash? And I understand the point they're trying to make. I get it. Because you have Leslie Grace, a Latina actor who is psyched for the role, have had no problems. She's lovely. She's excited. Like this is a great person and someone you want to prop up. And then you've got Ezra Miller, who has been nothing but problems for the past year. But it's a false equivalency. Batgirl was not canceled because of Leslie Grace, and The Flash isn't being released because of Ezra Miller. Those are not the deciding factors of either of those films. And so trying to say, oh, you're going to cancel the diverse Batgirl movie, but you're going to release the problematic Ezra Miller movie. I get it, but that is not the decision for either of those. The decision for Batgirl was because it was meant to go to streaming because of what they can get back by claiming it as a loss. That's why. The Flash was this massive investment, and you're right, it's a huge business proposition, but at the same time, it's a big creative proposition because of how much it apparently could affect future films. And there's just too high of an investment there to just write the whole damn thing off, even though it does feel like, and this is what we're about to talk about, that is one of the options on the table if things don't improve, if they can't get it figured out. So again, I feel like the cancel the Batgirl movie but release the Flash movie, oh, that's great. I understand it's bad optics, but I also think that is an oversimplification of the decisions they're making.
I think you're right. I'm not going to not be petty about it and keep saying it, but I think you're right. Because, I mean, at that point when it happened, I really wanted a Batgirl movie, and I'd really just flush the Flash down the toilet. I mean, I'm just, you guys know I've been over this whole Flash thing for what, 2 years now. So maybe that's my own fault because I would I would much rather have the Batgirl movie than the Flash movie. Maybe I'm the only one or in a very small minority of it, but I
Not
don't know.
necessarily.
I'm tired of the problems coming from that movie. I'm just
Yeah.
sick and tired of it. Not just the problems with Ezra, just the problems with the movie as a whole.
Yeah.
Going back to stage one of its development.
So this was kind of, I was amused by it. Maybe I'm just sick at this point, but apparently this summer, Ezra Miller went and did reshoots for The Flash. And like without incident, went back to the studio, shot some additional scenes, went back to whatever they were doing, caused more trouble. Like crazy to me.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when he's suited up and in front of a camera, he doesn't seem to be a problem for anybody. By any account,
when he's
that
on
I've heard.
set,
That's just it. He's. I don't know of any reported problems. You know, I guess there was some reports of him dealing with like a depression phase or
yeah, they said that during the principal photography for The Flash that Ezra was having just essentially mental health problems, but was not difficult on set, was just having a really hard time.
Right. And you know, that's a sad case, and it just kind of goes along with what we've been saying that we want them to get help, but there's been no reports of him attacking a co-star or abusing a set worker or anything along those lines. I don't recall ever hearing a single bit of that. It's when he's not working that he seems to get that they seem to get in trouble. You know,
yeah. So it's just crazy to me that like they're professional enough to go show up for reshoots and then just go back to whatever the hell they're doing elsewhere. So this was a report that just came out a couple days ago is the options that Warner Brothers are weighing because of The Flash. And apparently they have 3 options on the table that they are discussing. The first one is that allegedly Warners have received indications that Ezra Miller, who is apparently now with their mother, is seeking professional help.
Thank God.
And then if that happens, they would do essentially what I've been saying the whole time is they're going to go do an interview and talk about what they've been going through and what happened and essentially do the goodwill tour and then would do limited press for The Flash. And then the movie would just open as planned.
That would be, at this point, I think that's the most ideal circumstance we could hope for.
Agreed. I mean, that is the best case scenario. It's again, what I've essentially been saying this whole time, because everything that Ezra's been doing, like there are problems, but like, it's just the information is so inconsistent and so confusing. Cause again, like if there was a warrant out for Ezra, how were they able to go shoot extra scenes for The Flash? Because obviously they knew how to find him or them. So the whole thing is bizarre. But anyway, like, yes, this would be the best case scenario. I still hope this is what happens, is that Ezra goes and gets the help they need. And they essentially go out there and they take responsibility, they take ownership, and they talk about what they're doing to make things better. And there's still time for that. The movie comes out in 10 months, in theory.
And at this point, as far as I know, and I don't read as much of the articles or watch any of the ETV stuff or any of that. I don't keep up with celebrity news outside of what I see on Twitter and secondhand information from you and other people in our circles. At this point, to my knowledge, they have not inflicted any harm on a person that isn't maybe like a bruise or something. They haven't caused
and that's just
a very serious problem in that respect.
Yeah. Their crimes are like
nuisances. They're nuisances. They're not dangerous at this point.
They got mad at a party and threw a chair, and it hit someone, right? Which is not good, but like
no, certainly not.
It's you can kind of see how that happens, right? Even
and I want to be clear. I'm not saying what they're doing is okay. What I'm saying is they have not done anything that I think has gotten them past the point of no return.
Right, exactly. And that's exactly what I completely agree. And then it just came out a few days ago that there is a warrant out for their arrest for burglary. And we're like, oh God, what the hell happened? And apparently what happened is they went into someone's house and stole some bottles of booze. So like, yes, it's burglary, right? It ain't good. You shouldn't do that. But like, it's like, it's not like they busted into someone's house, wrecked the place, stole, like they literally stole booze from someone's house.
Again, not okay.
Not okay, but like, it
not
also
an
like
end of the world scenario.
Right. Exactly. Anyway, so that's the best case scenario. The second scenario is that if Ezra does not get their shit together, Warner's could just release the film, but Ezra Miller would do no press and no marketing for the film.
Which
that would be tricky.
I guess it would be tricky, but it would probably also be the second best as far as ideal circumstance, maybe.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the third option yet, so I might readjust that in a minute.
So, but I mean, it would be tricky because like at this point, like there has been enough news where like it's hard to not like, it's hard to not say anything at this point. Right. So like just to release the movie that is starring Ezra, who's in almost every scene of the movie, and then be like
as two characters, no less.
Yeah. So like, it's like, that one's harder, I think, to sell, but they hope, I'm sure that their thought as well. I mean, the movie is good. I mean, that's what they said. Apparently it's been doing very well in test screenings and it's good, which is, I think, only complicating the situation. Is there like, maybe the movie is good enough and there's just enough interest in the character and the characters and Batman that like it will still do well enough, even despite what's going on with Ezra.
So I would think that the biggest risk of downside with that scenario would be like, I don't know the correct term, freelance journalists, TMZ, places like that who just want to stir drama for the sake of stirring drama. If they're not going to have Ezra do press for the film in an official capacity, I would think that someplace like a TMZ or they're just the most notable. I mean, I'm sure there's dozens upon dozens of others that would make the same attempt to get a hold of them and say, hey, you tell us your story. And at that point, as unstable as they could be, they could make a stink for WB out of spite, bitterness, or just general instability. If what I'm saying makes sense here, that would be a risk for the studio that they might get it from the side of that angle,
Yeah. Well, and I do think that no matter what, I think the biggest problem is there is going to be that sort of gossip press around the movie constantly, regardless of what happens.
I agree with that, but if they don't have Ezra on their side, they run the risk of it being a worse situation than it could be.
Yeah. And the third option is that if Ezra Miller continues to have troubles, continues to get in trouble, it keeps getting worse, that they could just kill the movie outright because they can't reshoot it with a different actor. It says here Miller plays multiple characters, which we knew, and is in almost every scene.
And if they do what you have talked about in the past, where future installments that come under that same banner have to eat the budget of previous outings, are we going to be looking at a $350 to $400 million Flash movie the next time it comes up to bat?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know the inner workings. I don't know if that has to be done or if that's something the studio can choose to do with tacking on the budgets of previously in production models for it. I don't know, but I would think that would make it really difficult for the Flash going forward if that's the case.
Yeah. So, yeah, scrapping a $200 million movie would be crazy. But again, at this point, anything is possible. But that does seem like it's the last resort.
And that's to me why I wondered why, if they were going to do it, if it could go under that tax write-off option again, because I would think if it's done as a tax write-off, that gets it completely off the books. The next Flash movie that goes into production has no worry about having to eat that cost at that point. That's my
Well,
assumption.
yeah, but you can still claim losses on a film after it's been released. Where again, the difference is streaming versus theatrical. So if they release The Flash and it only makes $200 million, they can still say, oh, we lost $150 million in marketing, and they get the tax write-off for that. But for streaming, you can't do that because, again, there's no direct revenue stream. That's the word I was trying to think of, but my brain wasn't working. Revenue stream. There's no direct revenue stream for the streaming movies, and so they wanted to bundle that into the losses for the merger.
And to circle back around to that, there has to be a way of tracking somehow or another, at least getting a ballpark estimation of what a particular item in a streaming service is producing for them in any kind of monetary value. Because you can't tell me that Disney hasn't spent well north of $90 million on every single one of these streaming series that they've done in relation to the MCU or Star Wars or any of the other ones. Any of them. There's value there. And apparently Zaslav is saying that there, at least as we translate it, there's not enough value to invest that sort of money in a streaming platform. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. Now, you may not be able to directly track, but as far as like downloads, watches, tracking of how it's doing as a percentage of what people are watching on your service, there has to be a way to measure some of that to show the value of it. And if there's no value, why even have the streaming service, you know?
But that's the problem is, yes, you know how many people watched it, but you can't turn that into a dollar figure. Because you can't say how many people are only subscribing for that, how many people are watching it just because they were already subscribers. Like, there's so much unknown about that. It's not that there's not value in content on streaming. There obviously is, because everybody is committing to it, but you can't say this movie made us this much on Disney Plus, or this show made us this much on Disney Plus, or this movie is making this much for us on HBO Max. And apparently one of the issues is that, and this informed part of the decision, is that on HBO Max, even looking at the data they have about who watches what, they said that the movies that were theatrical and then come to HBO Max are watched more than direct to HBO Max stuff. And that's why he's saying the value isn't theatrical.
Okay. I guess.
I mean, I'm and I'm not even saying it's right. I'm just saying that I think is the rationale of like on a spreadsheet, you can't say Hawkeye made us this much last winter. You can only say this is how many people watched it. And you can say this is, whatever. This is how many cancellations we had when we didn't have new content. Like there are other things you can certainly explore, but none of it is a direct revenue for each for each piece of content.
Well, then I get into the whole rabbit hole of HBO Max, Disney Plus, Netflix to an extent. They all have IPs that they're showing from like previously released movies. Like HBO Max has like the Criterion stuff and older films and 90s films and whatever else. And I watch a bunch of that stuff on each one of the streamers myself, just because I'm too lazy to walk down 3 flights of stairs to grab the disc off my shelf or whatever. But the new stuff also has to be, you have to have a balance. You have to have a big back catalog and you have to have fresh new stuff coming in all the time. I think that's what makes a really solid streaming service. And I think that's why Netflix, HBO Max, and Disney are probably the top 3 right now, right?
Yeah.
I think we can all agree to that. So you have to have the original stuff coming in there. I don't understand why you wouldn't want original stuff under a DC banner coming in there, because that's just another tent pole, if you will, thing for them to put under that already recognizable and popular banner for their hubs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm chasing myself in circles now, but it just bothers me because I know there had to have been enough value to have a 90 or 100 or whatever the finished budget was going to be movie on there. I can't imagine the tax break would have been more beneficial than that. I guess is where I'm coming from.
No, I know. And I feel like Jason Kilar, who's the one who greenlit it for HBO Max, probably agrees with you. And that was probably his rationale of like, no, fresh content on HBO Max drives people to the service, drives people away from other services, and drives more subscribers. And Zaslav probably says, yeah, that's nice, but you shouldn't have to spend $90 million on a movie to do that. Because he didn't even say he's against original content for HBO Max, just not that expensive. It's like he drew the line of here's what is a reasonable amount for new streaming content. So again, I think that even the two sides are represented by the old boss and the new boss.
The whole thing makes my head hurt, honestly.
So anyway,
it's going to be a while before I'm over this Batgirl thing, but yeah, let's move along.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, so that's where we stand. And I think, to try and bottom line all of this, which is I think the hardest thing to do because there's so many moving pieces and there are so many unknowns, is that's where I'm at. The whole thing is very much up in the air. The whole thing is very muddy. We don't have a lot of clear info. All we know are the movies that have been made. We don't even know what the next steps are after the movies that are already in the can, aside from Joker 2 and probably the Batman 2. Like, outside of the movies that are already made, which is at this point Black Adam, Shazam 2, Aquaman 2, and The Flash, outside of that, we know Joker 2 is coming, and we know the Batman 2, again, I think it's a very safe bet as well. But those two are in their own little universes. What comes next is so unknown at this point, which is again, like you just kind of have to wait and see. And I think that sort of unknown and that sort of just big question mark about the future of the brand and of the films, it puts us all over the map. And I do think that is what is so interesting is again, there are fans who, I mean, and I get it. I've always been one of those fans of like, I'm hoping for the best. And there are fans who like listen who with the current state of it are like, great, this is good news. And I'm like, I just can't get there. I'm not convinced it's good news yet. And again, hopefully in the next 6 months, 9 months, a year, as things start to solidify, as we start hearing plans, as more people get put in place, I hope that is where I end up because we would all be happy with a rock solid DC slate and a DC plan moving forward. But for now, because so much of it is just undefined, for me, it's hard to get excited. I'm just very, very timid about the whole thing.
And here's the other thing. We have no definites beyond Flash or whatever the last released movie of the current crop is, other than Joker 2 and probably the Batman 2, as you say. If they don't iron this out quick, we could be looking at something like a 2 or maybe even 3 year gap between movies.
Mm-hmm.
We could be in a desert for 2 or 3 years without seeing anything.
It'll be the Man of Steel BVS gap of 3 years where they were getting their plan in place.
Right. That puts me at 50 years old before I see another potential shared DC universe on a screen, which really irks the shit out of me, I might add. But I'm not getting any younger here, and I'm not expecting to live forever. So I'd kind of like to see some of these things before I depart this mortal coil,
Yeah. So that's where we are. Lots of questions, not a lot of answers.
I knew I should have started drinking.
I know. I mean, but
I chose iced tea, but I made a mistake.
It's just such a huge tangle of Christmas lights that we're trying to untangle, but we aren't the ones to untangle it. All we can do is, keep up with it, hope for the best, hope that they're figuring it out, and that's where I'm at right now. What I also think, though, is very interesting is that we all have the same info as fans. We all do. We're all reading the same tea leaves, and the different ways people are interpreting those tea leaves is very different, which is interesting to me as well. And it kind of goes back to, I don't know if it's a famous adage or if it's just something I think to myself is, especially when it comes to DC fandom on the internet, is everybody's an expert and yet nobody knows nothing.
I know I don't know anything.
So, we just have to wait and see. And again, I hope that I'll be eating my words in a year from now, because we'll have a new slate and it'll be super exciting and we'll be really glad about it. But I just don't know what any of it's going to be. And so, it has certainly sapped my enthusiasm moving forward, which is a shame. I hate to be the one who's not psyched, but I just, at this point, I'm not all that psyched.
I'm kind of right with you, but hey, the good news is, knowing you and I, we can be brought over real quick to excited. All
Yeah.
we need is
Yes.
that one big announcement, you know,
100%.
just the
Yep.
one.
Yep. I can't wait to
And
be excited again. And yes, you're right. The right announcements can be that. Joker 2 was not that. Again, I'm looking forward to that, and I think that's great, but it was not the announcement that was going to be enough to quell my concerns.
sure. Right now we're getting off the roller coaster, but I can imagine the right announcement will get us right back to the front of the line to get on it again.
For sure. For sure. I'll say one more thing before we move to the Wayne Manor mailbox, just going back to the Ezra Miller situation. And I communicated this to you guys. I just think it's worth saying out loud, is that, like, I am saddened by the amount of fans who are excited about Ezra Miller's problems because they're mad about the Flash movie. I am disgusted by the amount of people who celebrate every time Ezra Miller gets into trouble because they're mad about a superhero movie. I just think that's gross, and I hate it.
I don't like celebrating anybody being down. Like the whole Depp Heard thing. I mean, I had to just turn my back on all of that because I was sick and tired of two sides arguing and just
Yeah.
were there any real winners in that?
No.
That's the point. You know, do you take any satisfaction away from two people who were in a what sounded to me like a mutually toxic relationship ending on a very, you know, bitter and public divorce? That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And Ezra having the problems that they're having, to have any kind of joy or celebration from that when this person is clearly having mental issues and needing help, be better people than that, guys. That's all I can ask. I can't tell anybody how to feel or how to think, but try to be better people. Try to empathize. Try to sympathize. It's the world's got enough problems in it without jumping on these kind of bandwagons and you know, kicking somebody while they're down. You know, be the hand that helps them up, not the hand that holds them down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that goes for anything. That's not just for Ezra. That's just life policy in general for me now, or I'm trying to make it so anyway.
Right. I know, and it goes back to stuff we've said in the past. We're like, guys, these are only movies, and I am someone who lives and dies by movies. They're my favorite thing in the world. I love movies, but at the end of the day, they're only movies, and the amount, like, oh my god, the amount of horrible behavior and fights and stuff that happen because of disagreements about movies is just madness to me. And same thing here, like, these are people's lives and you're cheering it on because you're mad that they might have made a movie that you don't think you liked, even though you haven't seen it yet.
I mean, I'm mad as a hornet about the movie, and I could care less if I ever see it at this point, but that's just me being bitter and petty and all that other stuff. But you know what? If the movie comes out, guess who's going to be there opening night? This is two thumbs pointing at me. I know you guys can't see it, but me. I'm going to be there.
All right. Well, let's move on. There you go. That is your state of DC films at WB Discovery. As I said, a lot of questions, not a lot of answers, and only time will tell.
For all those people, thank God football season is 3 weeks away. That's all I'm saying.
Thank God Halloween is coming.
Yeah, that too.
And yeah, so everybody who thinks this is all great news, again, good on you. I can't join you at this point, but I hope to change my mind sometime in the future. But again, the silver lining to all this is that the one thing that everyone seems to agree on is the value of the DC universe, the characters. And so DC content will not stop. It's going to change again. There's going to be a new plan again, but at least we'll continue getting DC content in theaters. on HBO Max, wherever, on TV, at home. So as fans, we will still be fed. The question mark is just what will they be giving us and when? But at least we know it's not going to stop, because at this point, DC is the crown jewel of WB. It really is. I mean, it used to be able to make the case for Potter or Middle Earth, but both of those are kind of, hibernating. And so DC is the one thing that WB has that no one else does, and a lot of people are interested in. So it's not going away, and I hope that its future is bright, and we'll continue getting exciting movies and shows and content and versions of these characters that we can love.
Here, here.
All right. Well, let's move forward. Let's check in with you, fine feathered finks, and crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. It is time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
Darren. What is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all, Master Wayne.
It is pretty full. Not a shock.
Well, it's been a couple weeks. So.
It has been a couple weeks. All right. This first one is from Mike from Louisiana. It says, "Hey there. Holy BatCast is by far and away my favorite podcast. On your top 5 animated films episode, you guys briefly mentioned that you felt Jason Todd should have stayed dead. I personally can't make up my mind because, yes, Jason is Batman's greatest failure, but I also love the Red Hood. I guess the story hits very close to home for me because my 8-year-old son Joey passed away in 2019, and the pain of losing a child is something I wouldn't wish on anyone, even the Joker himself. However, recently in Batman Urban Legends, Jason has decided to no longer use guns. It actually is a well-written story by Chip Zdarsky, and I highly recommend checking it out. However, as someone mentioned in the episode, Jason coming back and killing people almost makes Jason an even greater failure. But with this recent story, they seem to be making Jason even more of a superhero and less of an anti-hero. Would love to hear your thoughts. Keep up the great work. God bless, Mike in Louisiana." Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we did talk about this briefly about Jason Todd and his fate in our top animated films episode, which was super fun. And thanks for the message, Mike. Jamie, how do you land on Jason Todd?
Well, first and foremost, I'm very sorry for the loss of your son. That's a pain that I have never known, nor do I ever care to know. So my heartfelt sorry to you for that. That's something I can't even imagine. Number two.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I'll just chime in and say absolutely. Our heart goes out to you. I couldn't imagine going through that and losing a child. So, your son Joey. Just know that our hearts go out to you and to him. Wherever he may be, just sending you love, because that's just heartbreaking.
Number two, I love the state of Louisiana. I'm a big fan. It's a great place to hang out. Spent some time in New Orleans. Love it. Swamps, the whole thing. I mean, as stereotypical as touristy as it may be, I loved everything that I saw down there. Three, to address the Jason thing, I'm one of the people that killed Jason, and I've never really felt any sorrow or guilt over that. I'd do it over again, if given the opportunity to go back to 1987 or whenever that was that I did it. And yeah, I have no problem with what I did. However, just like as in the case with anything in any medium, a great writer can take a character or story and make it to where it can be appreciated by people who were even on the opposite end of the spectrum. In other words, taking Jason as the prime example here, I didn't like Jason. I couldn't stand him as Robin. I thought he was an annoying little shit, and he drove me crazy, which is why I killed him. But I have read Todd stories in more recent days that I appreciated and I thought were really good and really well done. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag of feelings for me on that, in that I would have been fine if he stayed gone. But since they did bring him back, I have appreciated some of the things that they've done with him since they've done it. Not all of it that I've read, but some of it that I think has been done really well. You bring up Zdarsky. I haven't read this particular story or run, but Zdarsky is a magnificent writer. The guy's got a lot of skill and talent. I read some of his Daredevil stuff, and I thought it was really terrific. So, yeah, I mean, I can appreciate it either way. I guess I play on both sides of that fence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually right there with you. I've always said that I think Jason was stronger dead, But that's been in the past for many years now. And so I have just accepted that he's not dead anymore. And there have been very good stories told with him since he has been back. I will concur with Mike. The urban legend story was great. I loved it. I loved that book. They told some really great stories in there with a lot of characters, but the Red Hood one was really terrific. So yeah, if I had had my druthers, he would have never come back. But now that he is back, yeah, there's value in that too. I mean, and that's essentially what I said about the animated movies. It's like, hey, like Under the Red Hood must be really, really good if it's my favorite Batman animated movie, and I'm one of the people who wish Jason Todd would have stayed dead.
I think it's been a good 7 or 8 years since I've watched that movie. I guess I need to go back and revisit it so I can see why y'all are bonkers over it. I don't know if it would have been in my top 5 if I was involved in that episode.
All right. Well, I've actually been rewatching quite a few over the past few weeks after that episode, just because it got me in the mood. All right. Next message is from Austin. It says, "Hey, BatCast. This question is mainly for Jamie, but could easily be applied to any comic story that was adapted for the screen. After being such a fan of The Dark Knight Returns, when the animated movie came out, did the music in the film live up to your expectations, or was it a letdown? I'd love to hear your thoughts and possibly your favorite comic turned movie and the music amplified the story." Thanks, Austin. I think I know this answer, but go ahead, Jamie. How do you feel about the music in The Dark Knight Returns?
I'm a big fan of it. I bought the soundtrack. I've listened to it independently of the film many, many times, and I've enjoyed it all those many, many times I've listened to it. I think it's really great music. I don't know that I had any particular expectation going into it. Coming into that movie, my concern was the justice that was going to be done to the overall story itself and how true they could remain to it, because you always know they're going to take some kind of creative liberties in doing so. And my hope was that even though I knew they were going to do it, I wanted to make sure that they still stayed within the bounds of what I felt was being on point with that story. And I think they did a great job. But I didn't go into it going, gosh, I hope the score is really good. I mean, I guess I almost have that hope or expectation with anything without even thinking it consciously. But yeah, I mean, I can't remember his name. Chris, what was the name of the guy that composed that? I can't remember it.
Is it Christopher Drake?
Christopher Drake. Thank you. Yes. I think he did a magnificent job. I think it fit it thematically, and I have no complaint to levy against it whatsoever.
Yeah, I'll just agree. The score for The Dark Knight Returns is actually really fantastic, and I love it. I listen to it pretty often. All right, next email is from our pal Stephen Marshall. It says, "Hey guys, I hope you're doing well and enjoying a fine summer. I just wanted to touch base on DC at Comic-Con. I understand your point that they gave us what they said they were going to, but I think that's a problem with DC in recent years. They don't maximize what they have. The Cavill thing aside, which I do think WB should have debunked, they could have done so much more with a little effort. Why not have a stare-down moment between The Rock and Zachary Levi just to tease a Shazam and Black Adam showdown at some point? It felt like a missed opportunity. Also, I don't get why Super Pets wasn't there. It felt weird given that it was coming so soon. Lastly, I think most people would have cut them more slack if they had ended the panel with another teaser like The World Needs Heroes that they did earlier in the year. If they had something showing like if this is what's to come in 2023 and beyond, with glimpses of Aquaman 2, The Flash, Batgirl, this email is obviously before the Batgirl cancellation. I get they can't announce what they don't have, but a little more effort in what they do could have gone a long way. And I feel like an opportunity to create some real hype. What do you think? Your grumpy Brit pal, Steven. Thanks, Steven. So we're going back to Comic-Con. So we're going back a few weeks. Jamie, what do you think?
I don't get as excited for Comic-Con the way that I used to, because I almost expect it to go the way that it did, and that we really don't get a lot of surprises. We really don't get much more than, the obvious. I think you brought it up on that episode that, BVS was the exception. Mm-hmm. It was the out of the norm circumstance, but that impacted so hard. We all, had the reaction of, well, they should just do this going forward. And they really haven't.
Yep. Same. I mean, like, there's a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda. And some of these ideas, Steven, I think would be really fun. I don't even disagree that a lot of these would be really cool and would build more hype. But I'm so used to what they have done every year that I am very realistic about what they're going to do this year. And so when they did exactly what they said they were going to do, and it was very consistent with everything they've done, I just was like, yeah, of course, because I know what to expect. Like you said, Jamie, BVS is was the exception, not the rule. The rule has been, this is what we're bringing, and then that's what they bring. So yeah, I do wish they would come up with some more of these gimmicks to do something a little more unexpected. They just don't seem all that interested in it. I don't know why that is, but I'm just pretty realistic with my expectations when it comes to their presentations.
And here's another thing I really hope with whoever comes in to run the DC establishment, as it were, PR and damage control.
Mm-hmm.
It's rumored that Henry Cavill is going to be at Comic-Con. DC PR and damage control. Nope, that's false. That we never said that. It's not going to happen. This literally takes no effort, guys. None.
Yeah.
Let's piss on this fire before it gets out of control, you know? But I guess they say there is no such thing as bad press. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that point, but maybe that's what they're thinking.
We'll find out when the Flash comes out.
Getting the entire internet ablaze with this information, both positive and negative, is just keeping more eyes on them and their product. And maybe that's why they choose not to do it. But if it was me, if I was king of DC, that's the approach I would take. I would squash that shit before it ever made it to the second article.
Yeah, I do think having a more open dialogue with fandom would be a good thing.
They can even play coy with some of it. Like if something is close to true, just throw out we're not going to comment on that at this time. Something along those lines. Just stay in front of it.
Yeah.
And like you say, instead of giving us the spy pics, have the same PR and damage control department be the first one to release an image, even if it is spy pic style. You be the first one to give us this. Don't let it be some jackleg with a Samsung standing over on the other side of a fence somewhere,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's getting down a whole nother thing.
No worries. Moving on. Next message from Weston Craig. It says, hey guys, I've got some questions. First, I'm getting married, and my fiance Jenny says that I can include something nerdy at the wedding. What Batman themed item or idea should I include? Second, I remember Brendan mentioning that many cartoons get the Australian accent wrong. I've been watching Bluey with my nephew, so does Bluey get it right? Third, please keep podcasting into your 70s so I can finally hear your review on Justice League, the animated series. Thanks, Weston Craig. Thanks, Weston. Or we could just do Justice League next. Huh?
I'm okay with that. I enjoy that show.
I mean, if we're following the timeline,
which is what somebody thinks we should be doing.
Yeah. All right. So, congratulations on your pending nuptials. My fiance Jenny says I can include something nerdy. You should be able to include as much nerdy as you want. It's your wedding too. That's just me. But I get how it is. I get it.
It's typically considered to be the bride's day, so you have to make a lot of concession to what she wants. But by God, don't let her mother get involved. I made that mistake, and it was rough at times. But hey, my cake topper was a Han Solo and Princess Leia action figure, so I got that much.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wore Batman socks, Batman cufflinks, a Batman tie, and it was all like still pretty classy. So like you can like if you're looking at something like that, you could certainly do that. I mean, yeah, to follow Jamie's example, you could put a Batman action figure on top of the cake. That would be cool. I support that.
You can't do Batman and Catwoman. That's too on the nose. Batman and Vicky Vale.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I say find a way to put it in however you can. Like you could do like little Batman confetti on the tables, something like that.
Justice League bottle openers at the reception. See
how easy it could be. Yeah, we gave Batman socks to every male family member coming to the wedding. So as like a little gift.
Nice.
So yeah, there are lots of things, like, I mean, I would definitely say like Batman tie, right? So then it's always there in all the photos and everything. But,
Oh, a bow tie that looks like a bat. How cool would that be?
yeah. So there are options, and I hope you get to incorporate them. As for the Australian accent, Brendan will just have to chime in on that in his spare time.
I mean, his Australian accent's terrible, so I wouldn't take his word for it.
I know. Like, what the hell does he know? All right, next message is from Skip. It says, this is coming hard with emotion, but WTF is DCWB doing? Andy, I know I already messaged you on Instagram, but how are you feeling about this? It's a big blow for DC and adds concern as to what's to come in the DCEU. Thanks, Skip. I think we just talked about it. I think we agree with you. I hope they're making sense of the chaos, but right now I just feel like it's chaos.
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
I think we've covered all of it as well as we could possibly do it in one sitting at this point. But I do want to tack one more thing onto the tail end of that conversation, since somebody brought it up in the email. I don't condone necessarily piracy of films or any of that, but if I have no other choice, I really hope somebody leaves a flash drive in a bathroom with that movie on it.
I know.
I need, at this point, I don't care how I see it. I just really want to see it.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've taken the option away from me makes me want to see it even more.
Well, and what they said is because in order to get the tax write-off, like, it literally can never be released.
Yeah, they cannot monetize this movie in any way, shape, or form. So now the only option we have is some kind of a pirated copy. The question is, how does that get leaked and or circulated?
Yep. Talk to Zack Snyder. He's got some ideas.
Yep.
All right. The next message is from our pal Jim Scroggs. It says, hey, this might be the longest email ever, so thank you for your time. I'm a Marvel fan first, but I'm not here to gloat. I'm just as upset and disappointed as you, and it hit me how to best describe this situation with Batgirl and WB Discovery. I feel like I'm in Chicago in the 90s and watching the Bulls with Michael Jordan, but also being a fan of the Bears and watching them win 6 games a year with no chance of a Super Bowl. And he continues, I want to be as optimistic as possible. I do believe that WB Discovery is probably letting these films run their course and then starting over with something that David Zaslav can put his own stamp on. Thanks for the time, guys. Thanks, Jim.
That wasn't even close to the longest email ever.
Yeah, that was actually pretty succinct, all things
I was sitting back in my chair, closing my eyes. I was getting set for the whole thing, and it's already done. I'm like, what?
Yeah, Jim, come on. That was great. More people should write long emails like you. I mean, I mean, I don't think anyone disagrees. I get it. Is that, like, we've been waiting for 10 years for DC to get their act together. And just as it's about to happen, it all gets shuffled again. And here we are again. So, and being from Chicago and having lived there in the 90s, this is a sports analogy I understand. So thanks for that.
Yeah, that clicked with me, and I wasn't a fan of either team, but I understand fully what he's saying.
Yeah. All right, next one is of our old pal Stuart from Guernsey. It says, hey guys, Batgirl. That's all I can say. I've got a horrible feeling in my stomach ever since this news was announced. At this rate, I have a feeling we'll never see Keaton in the role again, despite being in 3 movies. It's like the biggest tease ever. That's all I have to say. I'm saddened by the news. I go on holiday to Disneyland Paris next week, so I'm going to pour my energy and positivity into that. And by the sounds of it, this is just the first major bad news we'll be getting. Anyway, I hope you're doing well despite the bad news. Thanks, Stuart. All right, Stuart. Well, we agree with you, and I hope you had a great vacation at Disneyland Paris. It's a beautiful park. I love it, and I hope you enjoyed it too. But yes, I do think, and I don't remember if we said this then or if we just said it to each other privately, but I do feel like there will be more bad news before good news, I think.
It seems likely, or I guess the way I would put it is we would all be better suited to be prepared with that mentality than to expect something different at this point.
Yeah, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better at this point. All right, next message is from Mike Labasco. It says, hey, Bat family, after listening to your Batgirl canceled episode, I can't help but feel flabbergasted, or dare I coin the term flabberbatted. We live in a world where we're going to have a second Batman-less Joker movie and be deprived of a flick already made to further expand the Bat family that is Batgirl. As a fan, I feel like DC stands for dumb. Yeah. How long before The Flash will be shelved? Which I would like to tongue-in-cheek mention was on a fine course of being released until Jamie finally recognized its existence. That being said, I love Jamie. It's not a smart money decision, but DC seems to just be having a fire sale without the actual sale. I don't know if there's a question in here, but y'all are my only tribe who I can vent this to. Keep shining that positive bat signal in the sky, Michael Labasco. Thanks, Michael.
He's right. This all happened after I decided I was going to get on board with the rest of you. So my bad, y'all. Sorry.
Somehow it's your fault.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. Venting is fine. And the positive bat signal in the sky, I feel like I've let you all down in the past couple episodes. So I know that's why people come here, but also, like, I don't know, I'm kind of spent, if I'm being honest.
I mean, I know that you tend to be the most positive guy in the world when it comes to this stuff. And, sometimes people like it when you lose your shit over it too. I mean, we seem to get some pretty good feedback from you kind of flying off the handle there for a minute. But the reality of it is we're not doing anybody any kind of service in trying to paint a picture that is unrealistic and not being honest with ourselves, which in point leads it to not being honest with everybody else about how we see things, how we feel about things or anything else. And whether people agree or appreciate it or not, it doesn't do us any good to say, we understand it sucks that Batgirl was canceled, but we're holding out the greatest of hope that everything is going to be okay. And, the next announcement will be a better one and all that other shit. I mean, if that's not how we feel, why would we say that?
I do hope all that's true, but
I hope it is too.
Right now, we have nothing to go on. So
I would hope that one thing people appreciate about us over the last 8 years of doing this is that we speak our minds and we're honest about it. I would think that would be one of the major draws for people who tune in every week to hear us chat about this stuff, is they know that we're just going to tell the truth about what we think, whether people agree with us or not.
Yeah.
I know I appreciate that about you and the discussions I have with you. You don't sugarcoat things when we're talking about it. So you're generally a more positive person about this stuff than I am, especially in previous years up until more recently. But
I used to be. They wore me down.
Well, I was.
They broke my spirit.
I tended to be a little bit more harsh about things in previous years until I went on my quest to be a better person.
Mm.
And now Zaslav's trying to make old me come back, and it ain't good, y'all.
All right. Next message. It's for you, Jamie, so I don't even have to worry about it. This is also from Weston. It says, Jamie, what did you think of how the Flash was given a much smaller role in the Injustice movie? I was surprised by how quickly he died. One of my favorite parts of the game was when the Flash switched from being Superman's team to Batman's. It really kind of turned the tide in the fight between the two. And what did you think of Diana kind of taking this role? Also, what did you think about the movie having a happier ending than the book or games? It was interesting to see that Superman was repentant of his crimes. So in this universe, there's probably no opportunity for the events of Injustice 2. Thoughts? Weston.
Well, that goes back to what I said with Dark Knight Returns, and that you always have to anticipate that they're going to take creative liberties. I believe the Superman thing is very much that they had no idea if they were going to get a shot at another movie with this world past this one. So they just kind of had to put, some kind of finality on that, because if it just ends with Superman being the bad guy with no repentance or any of that, then that's going to leave a lot of sour taste in people's mouths, especially ones who aren't familiar with the story and have only seen the movie. As far as Flash and Wonder Woman filling some of that hole, I think, as I recall in the book, she very much kind of goes on that direction at some point too, but I think it's much later. But you're very restricted on time trying to fit so much material into an hour and 18 minutes. So I get it. Whether or not I think it's the correct or right choice, that's a matter of personal opinion. But I was kind of surprised that Flash went down as quick as he did. But you got to make concessions at some point, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't ask me, but I liked the moment with the Flash because it immediately set the stakes very early on in the film of like, oh, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And so to me, it really worked. All right. Next message from,
is there a third question in there I missed? I felt like there was
it was,
three.
I mean, it was all just about injustice, about Wonder Woman taking the role of switching
Okay.
sides and then it not having a happy ending. So,
Okay.
or it having a happy end or a happier ending. And yeah. All right, the next message is from Lloyd Wabbit. It says, hello, my beautiful, benevolent, and at times sultry BatCast hosts.
Sultry. Ooh.
I know. I hope I have not oversaturated or sullied the divine Wayne Manor mailbox with my constant badgering of superhero questions, but gosh darn it, I'm so dang excited to hear my favorite podcast host's thoughts on such dire fandom queries that plague my bat mind while at work. That being said, who and what are some of your favorite and most despised non-superhero, non-supervillain supporting performances in DC live action shows or movies? For example, my favorites are John Schneider as Jonathan Kent, John Glover as Lionel Luthor, Holly Hunter as Senator Finch in BVS, Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox in the Nolan trilogy, Christopher Maloney as Colonel Hardy in Man of Steel, and Cooper Andrews as I Wish You Were My Dad in Shazam. Least favorites are Michael Caine as Alfred in the Nolan trilogy. Sorry, fellas, he ain't my Alfred. Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White. It's not a good performance, and I love Larry. And Otis Donji as young Arthur in Aquaman. Peace out, Bat Babes. Until next time, a pennyworth for your thoughts, Lloyd Wabbit. All right, Lloyd. Okay, Jamie. So some favorite and non-favorite live action performances, but not heroes or villains.
I mean, Otis and Miss Tessmacher got to be on this list.
That's
right?
I like that answer. That's a fun answer. Yeah.
I mean, silly as the characters may have been at times, I appreciated them, and even at a young age and up till now, I've always enjoyed both of them for various reasons.
Well, and as long as we're on that, how about I think his name's Jackie Cooper was Perry White.
Perry, oh yeah, he was a great Perry White.
He was amazing, like scene stealer.
But as great as he was, and as much as I love Lawrence Fishburne in that role, I guess Lloyd and I are going to have to disagree on that point, and especially on Alfred. Man, I don't even know where that came from, but you do you, brother. Lane Smith as Perry White in Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. I thought he was fantastic. Okay. But I really like Lane Smith anyway because he has that good old boy charm that I always appreciate.
Yeah, yeah. So I totally agree with a lot of your choices. John Schneider's Jonathan Kent I thought was amazing in Smallville. He's also one of my favorites.
Excellent, yes.
Yeah, he was so good.
Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent. I even enjoyed his quite a bit.
I agree with that. Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox. Yes, amazing,
wonderful.
I would just say every Alfred. It's one of those where I love every Alfred. Sorry about it. I think that we've never had a bad one. A lot of fans agree, but yeah, I just think all our Alfreds are great. I will say the least favorite, and I think Jamie will be with me on this. Number one with a bullet, Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane.
Oh, I have thoughts that I'm going to keep to myself because I'm trying to be good today.
Here's how bad that was. That was like a career-ending performance.
Yeah.
Because
has she been in a single damn thing since then?
Yeah, have we heard boo from her after that?
Oh, wow.
It was really bad.
Yeah, it was. That choice from top to bottom was a swing and a miss.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're on the subject, he's a villain. Never mind. I was gonna say Kevin Spacey should have been great as Lex and wasn't. But sorry, that's the villain. We got to go supporting characters. My bad.
Yeah.
But Parker Posey was a lot of fun in that movie.
I feel like I'm going to kick myself after I think about this one for a while. This would have been a nice prep question because there's loads of answers.
The best with the bullet is Robert Wool as Alexander Knox.
How many answers is that? 6?
A few.
You missed.
How about Etta Candy in Wonder Woman?
Oh, yes. That was a great performance.
She was great.
I loved her in that.
Yeah. I know. I'm trying to think of non-Batman, non-Superman stuff.
Gene Smart in the Watchmen series. Does that count, or are we getting too far out of bounds there?
I mean, maybe, but like you're right. She's amazing, and she just owned that. So I'm okay with it. I'll allow it.
All right.
Mostly because I agree. I would say Eric Roberts in The Dark Knight is great
Oh yeah, he
as
was really good in
Maroni.
that.
Yeah, he's great.
I still laugh at that scene every single time.
It's a small part, but he just has a blast with it. All right.
It's unusual to see a performance that restrained from Eric Roberts. I think that was the biggest surprise for me.
Yeah. Well, it's like we talked about on our Dark Knight Rises episode is how Nolan would get these like journeyman character actors who weren't always the most well respected and then bring them into the movies and they would be great. Like Eric Roberts in The Dark Knight, like Rutger Hauer in Batman Begins.
Oh, that's another one I'd add to that list would be him because I'm a big Rutger Hauer fan going way back into the day, back to like the Lady Hawk era or Blade Runner. You know, most people would have chose that, I guess, over Lady Hawk, but
but not you.
Breed. Not me.
All right. Well, how about the little kid with the glasses and Swamp Thing?
Oh, the Wes Craven movie?
Here comes trouble.
Oh, how about that adorable little blonde boy in Batman Begins? I'm sure he was going to grow up to do great things for the world, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, there's some off the top of our head answers. I hope that works. Okay, next message is from Brian B. It says, good evening, guys. Hope you're doing well. Jamie, I heard on the last pod that you got a new job, so congrats. I'll email you today to chime in on the Batgirl cancellation, as well as my typical B-level question. In terms of Batgirl, it exposed a deeper problem that needs to be addressed. Andy and Brendan, whenever I use sports analogies, it goes over your head. So, Jamie, this one is for you. I will just say, Brendan's a sports fan. It's mostly me, and I know it. It's fine.
Well, I mean, you say he's a sports fan, but it's only in the most academic of senses. Like he doesn't watch real football. He watches like rugby or something like that.
Yeah, but you know, he also lives in a whole other part of the world, but he likes sports. And I was told that when I make fun of myself for not liking sports, I'm actually making fun of people who like sports. So I apologize if it ever comes off that way. That is not the way it comes off.
Somebody said that?
Someone said that.
All right, whatever.
As I'm like, no, I'm really just making fun of myself.
It's really more of a self-deprecating thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I was told that. Yeah. Anyway, so apologies if it ever comes off that way. Anyway, so here we go. Here's his sports analogy for you, Jamie, and maybe for Brendan. But this does feel like it's an American football thing. So maybe Brendan is going to be lost. It says, I view WBDC much like the Dallas Cowboys, where their brand name is strong. And since Jimmy Johnson left the dynasty he built, they haven't been a viable franchise. They've had some good teams, but they haven't come close to reaching the Super Bowl in 25 plus years. Much like WBDC, they had a dynasty with the Nolan films, but in now the 10 years since, at best, they've had a few solid films, but for the most part, a lot of drama and some low-quality outings, much like the Cowboys. It all stems from poor leadership, which the Cowboys, and I hate to admit, WB/DC has. I know it's a sore subject, but Marvel has strong leadership, which leads them to have quality films year after year, even after some bumps on the road. As someone who roots for the New York Knicks, who has seen failed regimes time after time, and Jamie, as a Raiders fan, you've seen this as well, this is the exact same thing I see with these teams, and I will tell you, the problems will always stay there until we get leadership that can right the ship and make sure the characters are treated with respect. It's a sinking feeling. I really thought the tides were turning, and now I feel like we have another failed regime on the horizon. In terms of my second question, I remember on one of the last pods, Jamie and Andy argued about Halloween 6 and Rob Zombie's Halloween. Andy, I definitely lean 100% with you on Zombies Halloween, but my question is this. What's a popular and unpopular take that you have on a franchise you love? For example, my unpopular take for Halloween is that I secretly love Halloween 5, but I think H2O is very overrated. My last couple, I think, are Alien 3 is a really good film, but not a fan of the exosuit fight in Aliens. And Goldfinger is overrated, but Tomorrow Never Dies is secretly a great Bond adventure. As always, thanks for your hard work. Sorry for the length of the email. I'm really bummed on what happened, and I had to chime in. Best of luck, Brian. Thanks, Brian. I mean, I still followed your sports analogy, even if I didn't know the names of some of these people. I still think I get the point. But Jamie, why don't you chime in on that first? Of
I mean,
essentially,
I feel like his point is valid, and I mostly agree because I almost brought up the point very much like what he said with the Raiders. I mean, you need the infrastructure. Like in the case of a sports analogy, the team is your cast, right? The players are your cast that you're shooting the film with. You need the right director, which would be the coach. You need the right producer, which would be your front office guy, your GM, and you need the right studio head, which would be your owner. If you don't have all of those things in sync and doing it the right way, it's very hard to win a lot of games and ultimately reach that goal of a championship, right? And
mhm.
I very much see it the same way. I think leadership is in chaos. I think they keep trying to pick a guy that they think might work, but doesn't necessarily pan out because the Raiders have been through 6 coaches in 8 years or something like that. So yeah, I get all of that and I agree with it. The only thing I might take away from that is everybody keeps talking about the great quality of Marvel's films, and I'm sorry, I don't love the Marvel films as a whole the way everybody does, but there's some I love, there's some I like, there's some I don't, there's some I hate. But when you have a universe that big, that's just what you have to expect. I think the same thing about the Bond franchise. Now I'm going to wind up thinking the same thing about Star Wars because we got so much content with that. I mean, there's just when you expand something into that level, you have to expect to love, like, and hate, and anywhere in between with that stuff. That's just how it's going to go. You can't score 25 out of 25 times. It's just not going to happen. But what was the next thing after that?
Well, I want to address that real quick myself,
right,
and then we'll move on to the next question. I do think the point is very valid, and it does feel like, and we sort of hit on this in our conversation a little earlier, is that to me it seems like they change leadership before the current leadership is even allowed to get into things and change them. So like Nolan had a plan, or not Nolan, I'm sorry. Snyder had a plan. And if they just let him stick to the plan, it could have all worked out. But they didn't. They got scared. And so then they changed to Jeff Johns and John Berg. And they were barely, like I said, they were barely in power for a year. So they couldn't even do anything. And we couldn't even see if they were able to right the ship because then they were moved out. And then Walter Hamada's plan is still in motion and now he's getting moved out. So it's like they can't commit to leadership long enough to even find out if any of these plans could work, which I do think is what's causing so many of the problems. I will agree with you though, Jamie, about the Marvel's output is there's no denying Marvel's success.
Certainly not.
And they're able to put out successful films every time. But yes, I think the quality of those films is up for debate because like you, Jamie, I think it's a lot more hit and miss than maybe everyone thinks. But I think quality and success are two different things.
Yeah, it's a very subjective thing. If you love I don't even know how many there are, probably close to 30 Marvel movies. If you love all of them, great. I am really glad for you. I probably love like 12 to 15 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that. And I think that, but again, I do think there is still something to be said for Marvel building up so much trust with the public that even their movies that I don't think are very good, that the fact that they get a pass because, well, it's Marvel, it can't be bad, kind of like Pixar, which I don't agree with that either, but like that they were able to build up that much trust in that brand name and that brand recognition that even their not great films still get a pass from the public and from fans. Yeah, that's a heck of an achievement because that's just how much value that brand now has. Anyway, so the second question is it was a popular and unpopular take on beloved franchises. So Halloween was the example he gave. So he said, I secretly love Halloween 5, but I think H2O is very overrated. So honestly, I don't think this is a popular take. This feels like it's just hot takes on franchises.
Okay.
But
First
Halloween,
of all, H2O is not a great movie, but I thought it was the perfect ending to the Laurie and Michael saga. And then they had to go and screw that up with Resurrection. So
Right.
That's my 2 cents on that one. I still enjoy
No.
the movie very much. I really like it a lot.
I'll agree with you.
It's not fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since we're talking about Halloween and we're getting in the spirit, I mean, part of it is kind of what I said whenever we discussed that, I remember, but like any Halloween movie except for the zombie ones, I can put on and have fun. I know that they're not great. I know that 6 isn't great. I know that Resurrection isn't great. I'll still watch it and have fun with it. So like, I'm just that big of a sucker for Michael Myers that I'll watch any of them. But I think my real hot take is and this has gotten stronger and stronger over the past few years, is I think Halloween 4 might be the second best movie.
Bro, I can't get on that ride with you.
I know. That's why it's a hot take. Is I know, but I really do think that. I think that like it's the one I want to watch as much as the first.
All right. Let me throw my hot take in on this franchise then. Obviously, we all concur, and I don't know anybody that's out of bounds on this whatsoever. John Carpenter's Halloween 1978 is king, and nothing's even close to it.
Well, duh.
That's obvious. I just want to get that out of the way. My hot take, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, top 3 or 4 in the whole series, whole franchise, all of it, beginning to end. Yeah, I think me and one other person, Guy Milks, are going to die on that hill by ourselves playing cards.
And I can't wait for it to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not even
better every single time I watch it.
That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Okay, you can.
And I've heard some ridiculous things in my time. Other hot takes for beloved franchises. I mean, because
Attack of the Clones has the best action of any Star Wars movie.
I might go with you on that. I love the last act of Attack of the Clones. I think it's great.
From the droid factory on is primo. I love it.
That one I can get with you on. I was going to go to Star Wars. Rogue One, I think, is a terrible movie.
It's not great. There's things about it I do enjoy.
I hate it. I think it was so bad. And I think that the only reason it's given a pass is because of that last scene with Vader.
Well, that's certainly my favorite part, but I also love Donnie Yen a lot, so I'd let that roll with it.
And now they're making an Andor series, and I'm like, oh great, we're getting a series based on the most boring character in Star Wars history. Great.
I'm probably going to wind up watching it because I'm a Star Wars apologist, but I'm not in a hurry to do it. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi was great.
I liked it. I think great is, I'm not quite there, but I really liked it. I enjoyed it.
I think it was great, but whatever. I know a lot of people didn't. There was a group of people at my job the other day talking about how they didn't like it. And I was just like, well, whatever.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was as divisive as it was, but it was. Like I did see reactions all over the place on it.
Here's a hot take for Star Wars. This is probably going to get me shot. C-3PO, Jar Jar Binks with a more clear and concise accent.
I get that. I mean, that maybe this is going to get me in trouble. Going over to Marvel. The first Avengers film, 2012, the best Avengers film.
Okay, now you're going to make me say it, but I agree 100%, and second place ain't even close.
Yep.
Like, not even close. And I own all 4 Avengers movies. Well, 5 if you count Civil War, but I don't hold any of them to the standard that I do that first one, because I think I'm not going to get into the whole thing. I'll just say, I think that's a top 4 or 5 Marvel movie for me.
Yep, I agree.
I want to find a DC hot take, just to throw out there. And just
okay, go for it.
I'm trying to think, but if you got another one, you come in. But
a DC hot take. I don't know how much of a hot take it is, but I think Aquaman is top 5. I don't know if that's a super hot take or not.
The DC movies, or just DCEU, or
all the above.
Okay.
I think Aquaman is one of the best superhero movies ever made. I do.
I do enjoy that movie a lot. I think it's fantastic. I do love it. It's weird that we live in an era where Aquaman made $1 billion. I still can't get over that.
I know, but the movie's so damn good. I don't care.
I agree. It's just, Aquaman was a joke.
Yeah.
For however many years. I mean, I didn't get off that bandwagon of making fun of Aquaman until about 2016. So, I can't think of one. I mean, I want to say something like Henry Cavill's my favorite Superman, but I don't feel like that's much of a hot take.
I feel like half and half. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll just say one to nuke somebody that loves Superman 78, even though I love Superman 78. But Kevin Costner's the best Jonathan Kent.
All right.
Somebody out there is already typing the email to respond to that. I promise you.
Yeah. And my hot take on Bond is I just can't get into it. I've seen a lot of those movies and I'm just like, okay. Like it is one of those that just does nothing for me.
So there's 25 or 26 Bond movies now. Something like that. 20 something.
That's Brendan.
There are like 4 or 5 great ones. Then there's like 15 good, enjoyable, watchable, entertaining ones. And then there's like 5 really shitty bad ones that I hope I never have to watch again.
All right.
Brendan right now is typing the angry email in response to that.
That's fine. It's fine. All right. Here's the next email from Mark Jurasevic. It says, I found the episode on the Batgirl cancellation very informative, and I agree with you guys on your thoughts and feelings. I'd like to offer some thoughts and questions, and as always, would like to hear what you have to say. Number one, there was a report recently that the Black Adam pre-screening was similar to that of Batgirl. It has me worried. All I can say is don't mess with The Rock. He wouldn't stand for any interference, but does he have the power to influence WB/Discovery? I noticed that his Instagram feed has been quiet on this front since the WB Discovery report. Number two, WB have apparently approached and would like Henry Cavill back as Superman. As much as I'd love Cavill back, does he really want to come back to this type of environment when it appears cast and crew are expendable just to save an already damaged reputation? With projects and franchises like The Witcher, Enola Holmes, Argyle, and potentially Highlander, does he even need or want to come back? And number three, the tax write-off scenario may have some truth. I don't agree with it, obviously. I recall the same theory was suggested after the commercial failure of John Carter. The movie had next to no promotion, marketing, and perceived backing from the studio, with the aim for the studio to make much less than a significant $250 million budget. That plan succeeded, and a very good sci-fi fantasy adventure suffered as a result, not to mention having a negative impact on the careers of the director and lead cast, which took several years to recover. I hope that the DCEU finally gets back on track, and we're in a position to just sit back and relax and enjoy the ride with some of our favorite heroes and characters. Cheers, Mark. Thanks, Mark. All right, let's take them one at a time. The first one is the report recently that Black Adam's test screening was similar to Batgirl's. I already kind of addressed that, is that the first cuts both tested in the 60s, which again is very common for first cuts of movies. And so I would not worry about that. As the movies actually get finished, those numbers go up. And so again, I think the concern is not that Black Adam is bad, it's that Batgirl wasn't bad. The Henry Cavill conversation, it says WB has apparently approached. Sure, Jan. Like we've heard it so many times. Whatever. I'm tired of the rumor. Says who? I don't even believe it anymore. What is your take on that, Jamie?
My take is the same. It's been for a couple of years now. I don't know who's to blame for it, but until I see concrete evidence that gives me a different perspective, you'll have a hard time getting me to believe that it wasn't a two-way street that's causing this.
Yeah. I will say, I do think Cavill needs Superman because The Witcher, Enola Holmes, Argyle, and Highlander, none of those have the cachet of Superman.
Not even close.
So for now, do I think he still needs it? Yes. But much like we've talked about every time this rumor comes up, I'm not holding my breath.
But those other projects, they're probably getting him paid. He's probably
Yeah, I
buying
mean, he's
a
working,
nice
right?
beach house in Malibu with that or something.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But to say something like that would even combining the four of those against Superman, I still wouldn't think would be the cachet or payday that Superman would be.
Right.
And
Right.
that actually leads back to the last point I just made. I'm not sure Henry isn't trying to price himself out of this, knowing the value of that character and his desirability to play it.
I mean, that's one of the rumors. And then finally, the tax write-off, similar to John Carter. I mean, it's not exactly the same because John Carter was still released in theaters, but it goes back to the point I made earlier about a movie released in theaters that the studio can claim a loss on. They can still get a tax write-off for that loss. I do think that happened with John Carter, if I remember correctly, which is a shame because Jamie and I both really like that movie.
What a score for that one too.
Yeah, yeah, I really like it. But so I don't think it's entirely the same thing. It's different to just shelve the movie and take the entire write-off as opposed to releasing it and then just taking a write-off for the losses. But I get the point of going, hey, we're not going to make our money back. Let's cut our losses now instead of still, throwing good money after bad, right?
Yep.
Okay, next message from Jacob. It says, Dear Andy, Jamie, and Brendan, I'm upset about the cancellation of Batgirl. However, thinking it over thoroughly, I've come to the personal conclusion it may be for the best. While DC has many films that aren't considered great, like Batman and Robin, Green Lantern, Catwoman, we can't keep shoving more and more films under that same lens. While I myself am sad I may never get to see a Batgirl movie, I'm choosing to look at David Zaslav wanting quality over quantity, which might become an advantage for DC as Marvel continues to make subpar films. Well, there you go. There's the other side. I may be looking too far into this, but I'm of the mind to look for the silver lining. So now for a question. Why do you think the DC and Marvel fans are always butting heads? In my mind, you don't see this kind of competition with other large franchises. Jacob. Thanks, Jacob. Jacob, I do appreciate that you're trying to see the long term. And again, maybe in time that will be the case and we will agree with you. It's just right now, for me, it's still kind of hard to go, I don't know if this was a great decision, but I do get your point of going, hey, like sacrifices must be made for the bigger picture. And hopefully that bigger picture will be worth it. I get that. And I hope you're right. I'll just say that.
So to address that first thing, a kid drops his ice cream cone on the sidewalk. He cries. He's sad about it. What's the best way to get that kid not to be sad and crying about that?
Drown them.
Get him a double scoop of the same thing and put it right back in his hand. So Zaslav just came and knocked my ice cream cone right the F out of my hand and onto that hot sidewalk on a hot August day. Until he puts that double scoop in my hand, I'm going to continue to cry and be sad about the ice cream cone on the sidewalk. So it's all on him. I'm going to have a hard time being super supportive and saying he did the right thing until I see the results of why he did what he did or gives me something in replacement for it.
Right. Fair enough. And then why do DC and Marvel fans butt heads? It's a tale as old as time, Jacob.
I really think to an extent, and here we go. I've tried to avoid this as much as possible. I might have brought it up in passing a time or two, but DC fans kind of brought this on themselves, at least the circle of them that I run with, because when Dark Knight Rises and I think it was Amazing Spider-Man, was that 1 or 2 that came out the same year? One. Okay. And Batman Dark Knight Rises just cleaned its clock. And we were merciless about it. F Spider-Man, Batman's better, blah, 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 blah. And then not very long after that, that tide shifted in a totally another direction. So what goes around comes around. I was involved in that. I made fun of Spider-Man. I said Batman was better. I still think Batman is better. But
remember, that was also the year of the Avengers. And the Avengers
was
bigger than both.
The thing with the Avengers that us Batman fans said was, congratulations, it took like 6 of you to outdo one Batman. So, even then we were making excuses and whatever else. I mean, most of it was done in fun. Most of it was just petty, ridiculous stuff of people, like people doing trash talk groups on Facebook for football. I mean, I always did that for fun and made a lot of friends in the process, even though they liked other teams and such. But The reality of it is somehow it's become malicious along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that bothers me is these people, like you said, you're sick of people celebrating Ezra doing bad things or getting in trouble or having these problems, and it's gross. I mean, somebody shared a tweet with us in a group chat we have with a few people that literally this tweet said after the last Ezra debacle, LOL at DC.
Mm-hmm.
That pissed me off. That just, why? This is so far beyond something that has to do with DC other than this person being not mentally right now. Just so when you're taking it to that level where you're going from gentle ribbing and nudging and winking and having fun and cheers, that was a good one, to now we're just getting straight up mean about it. That's where I have a problem with it. And I have that problem with sports or anything else that's any kind of a rivalry, friendly or otherwise. I think people just take it too far. And I think too many people have taken it too far. They take this personal. They take it as some kind of a vendetta, and they can't wait to celebrate their victory and the other side's shortcoming. And it's beyond anything I even want to be involved with at this point.
Yeah. What's the quote? It's not enough that I succeed. Other people must fail.
Something like that.
Yeah. It almost feels like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I can add to that other than I don't know why it gets so nasty with Marvel and DC. I think there's certainly blame to lay on both sides of the fence, and there is a difference between all in fun and then where it gets nasty. To your point, Jamie, I think that's a really good point, because yeah, sometimes it is just all in fun. But I don't think it's only Marvel versus DC. If you talk to Star Wars fans, and they'll tell you it's way worse.
Yeah. That's literally fighting inside of the same fandom.
Yeah.
It's not even a this company versus this company. It's literally the same people cannibalizing each other. And I love Star Wars. I've loved Star Wars since my very earliest memories of life. And I just don't even want to be involved in Star Wars discussions anymore because of how that fandom has turned on itself.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not only Marvel versus DC. I will say this though. Here's what I love about being a Jurassic Park fan is when a new movie comes out, some people like it, some people don't, but nobody wants to fight about it. And it's great. I can watch it. I can enjoy it. Nobody wants to fight. It's fine. I watch the movie. I enjoy my dinosaurs. I like some things. I don't like other things, but it's all good. It's so, I'll tell you, Jurassic fandom is the place to go. Because even if we disagree, we don't fight about it. Just don't care. It's kind of nice. It's the least drama of all the big franchises. So I say abandon DC, abandon Marvel, abandon Star Wars, and join us in Jurassic. It's just a happier place.
All right. Let me go back to the whole hot takes of fandom thing that we just did a minute ago.
Okay.
Jurassic World is the best of the whole series. That's a hot take.
Okay. Jamie, what do you
I'm not kidding. I actually think that.
I know,
I do.
But you're also.
I know you don't agree with me, and I know most people think
Titan.
I'm a crazy person, but that's my feelings on that.
Okay. Well, yeah. Every opinion counts. Even if it's wrong. Okay. Next message from Chris Knowles. We only have 3 more. We can do this. This says, Hey guys, popping in to offer a theory. About Dark Knight Rises, about how Bruce Wayne got back to Gotham in The Dark Knight Rises. In Batman Begins, while Alfred and Bruce are building the Batcave, Alfred explains there are secret tunnels leading to the coast that Bruce's great-grandfather used in order to get people out of the country during the Civil War. It's possible Bruce made that journey in reverse, but didn't have a batsuit in Wayne Manor, so had to go and find Lucius Fox. That's how I justify it in my headcanon. There you go. You can take it or leave it. Peace and love, Chris Knowles. Thanks, Chris. I will say this. I read this email when you sent it. Thank you. I immediately went and watched that scene in Batman Begins to see what was said. And all Alfred says is that your great-grandfather used to help with the Underground Railroad, and these caverns under the house must have helped. That's all he says. So you're giving a lot more context that there are secret tunnels leading to the coast and getting people out of the country. None of that's in the movie. That is editorial. So
Well, clearly what he did was use the same tunnels that Godzilla used to get from point A to point B on the other side of the planet.
so it's funny though, because I had never heard that line of dialogue connected with this I don't want to say plot hole, but this point of contention in The Dark Knight Rises until we did the commentary, and I think you mentioned it, Jamie. And then Chris followed up basically saying something similar, and I was like, oh, I'd never really thought of it. I still think it's a bit of a stretch, but if it helps your headcanon, then that's great.
I mean, he's Batman. He does amazing things that most other normal people can't do. I don't know why it is so hard for somebody to accept the idea that he might have stowed away on a cargo plane that headed for the US that he knew was going to land in Gotham, near Gotham, and then, hotwired a car and drove to the edge of Gotham and snuck in and swam across the thing. I mean, this probably takes a couple days, no doubt, but I don't know why people just can't get their head around an idea like that and just accept it or go with it. I think people just wanted reasons to criticize that movie, and they just ripped apart every little thing that they possibly could that wasn't painted in a clear picture on a screen.
Well, I will say this. I was not looking for reasons to criticize the movie. But that point still bugged me. And the reason it bugged me is because it is a story point in the film that Gotham is literally cut off from the rest of the world, and you cannot leave and you cannot get in. That's why I'm like, there had to be some sort of explanation of how he figured out how to do it. And the fact that they just edited it so it's like, nope, he's just there now. Even that pushed my, my little like, I don't know if I can buy that. That's
All
why.
right.
That's why. If Gotham was not closed off and it was literally just him getting back to the States, I think I would have gone with it more, because you're right. There are ways to get back to the States, right? It was getting into Gotham when they literally are closed off and the bridges are blown. That's the part where I'm like, give me something. And honestly, I think a line of dialogue essentially saying what Chris is saying would have gone a long way of him going, yeah, there were tunnels that my great grandfather used during the Underground Railroad, and I'd go, oh, okay, that's interesting, sure, but again, they don't go there. All right, next message is from our pal Carrie Vanderberg. It says, hey, Holy BatCast crew, I enjoyed listening to your Dark Knight Rises episode while watching the movie. I appreciate the praise that you gave to the film, despite it not being the best of the three. I agree that objectively it's not the best, but somehow it's still my personal favorite. Honestly, Bale's Batman voice has never bothered me, even in that final scene with Bane. I just appreciate Bale's commitment to the choice. While I hear your criticisms, I just don't share most of them. I just love Bruce Wayne's journey, and Hathaway's Catwoman and Hardy's Bane just work on so many levels. However, never once did you guys mention Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities and how it played an enormous influence on the plot. Have you ever read it? I did whenever Nolan talked about it before the film came out, and I saw all the connections. For example, in the courtroom, when Bane is knitting, that's exactly what the female villain, Madame Lafarge, does in the book when they're executing members of French high society. Bane's reading of Gordon's letter is a match for a confession from one of the protagonists in the book, found and read by Defarge as evidence against the protagonist. The storming of Blackgate Prison also parallels the storming of the Bastille, just as Bane's revolution of Gotham mirrors the French Revolution. The film echoes the novel's overall theme of high society being an oppressive force upon the lower class, alongside the evils of anarchy and mob mentality. Even though most Batman fans don't factor that into the movie, for me, I really appreciate how Jonathan and Christopher Nolan used a work of classic literature to inform their Batman film. It shows that a Batman film could be more than just great action and a superhero movie, but it can utilize fiction that stands the test of time. All the best to you guys, Carrie. Thanks, Carrie. Glad you enjoyed the commentary. I will say, I think we gave a lot of love to Hathaway and Hardy, so I think that all three of us were with you on that one. As for A Tale of Two Cities, I'll just say this. Have I read it? I have not. And I did know that it influenced the movie, but because I didn't know it very well, there's really not much I could say to that point, although I know that is also what Gordon reads at Bruce's funeral is an excerpt from that, correct? I believe?
I don't know, because I've never read it either.
Okay, well, good. So I guess what I'll say is, yeah, we haven't read the book, but I certainly appreciate you giving us a little context and showing some connections between the book and the movie. That's great. Thank you.
I would say I should read it, but in high school I was forced to read Great Expectations, and nah, I'm good. Dickens ain't writing stuff for me. If you get Jim Lee to illustrate a Dickens novel, I would probably read it.
Okay. Tales Two Cities, the comic book adaptation.
Yeah.
I would read that too. How about this? I don't need to read A Tale of Two Cities. Do you know why? Because I've seen The Dark Knight Rises.
Perfect. We'll go
Does
with
that work?
I like it.
All right, this is our last email. Thank you guys for hanging in there. This is from Hugh Morris. It says, "What's up, Holy BatCast? I recently got my 2-year-old daughter to see Super Pets, along with my wife and mother-in-law, and they actually enjoyed it. Not as much as me, but I was pleasantly surprised. I'm fortunate enough to live right by a theater that has a theater called Screenplay, which has an indoor play area that kids can play on to burn that energy before a movie. I highly recommend it if you have toddlers. P.S. Can we call him Slav? Until he earns our trust and respect, no matter how long it takes. P.S. I blame Jamie for what's going on with the Flash. It was all good until he started to believe that it was coming. Stay safe out there, Bat fam. Hugh."
Mea culpa, y'all.
Yep. Thanks, Hugh. I really wish that there was a theater that was conducive to bringing an infant, but we're not there yet. But I love that there are options like this, and I'm glad you're a 2-year-old.
Any theater can accommodate an infant if you bring chloroform.
Yeah, that's not wrong. Well, last night we went and saw E.T. in IMAX, which was wonderful. And our babysitter canceled 2 hours before we were supposed to leave. And fortunately, we had some friends who were able to jump in and watch Harley in the meantime. But we did have that moment where we're like, do we bring her and just hope for the best? She's a good baby, But fortunately, we did not have to. And of course, I'm saying that as she's screaming in the background.
I was getting ready to say perfectly timed there. The third time I saw Revenge of the Sith in the theater, which would have been like the second week it was out, because I saw it twice the first weekend, and then went again with my wife that third time. Somebody brought a baby in there that couldn't have been like a month or two old. And getting toward the end of the movie, Order 66 is going on, and this kid is losing her mind, and the parents refuse to leave the room with the kid. And all I could think to myself was, dude, it's really good for you that this is not my first viewing of this movie, or you and I would be out in the parking lot right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love kids, but they can screw things up real bad.
Well, and that's just it. I refuse to be that guy. I just can't. So we'll deal. I was able to get out to see Super Pets, though.
How was that?
The best word I can come up with is cute. It was cute.
All right.
It was enjoyable. It was nothing groundbreaking. It's not going to change your life, but it was cute. I would happily watch another one. One of these days we'll do an episode where we dig in deeper, but I enjoyed it. I did not regret seeing it, but it wasn't, earth-shattering. There's some good laughs. It's worth seeing.
That's about what I expected out of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, not amazing, not bad, fun, but yeah.
I tried to go see it on opening day. One of my daughters had to work. The other one didn't really want to go to the movies. So I just said, okay, we'll just wait 44 days and watch it on HBO then. No problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are closing the Wayne Manor mailbox. Thank you guys. Thanks for your patience. We finally got it. It's all cleaned out, which is always a good feeling. But if you've got something for next time, I'm sure you will after this episode. God, I can only imagine what's coming. You can send those to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. But that's where we're going to wrap up this episode. Jamie, thanks so much for joining. Always good to chat.
It was a fine sense of accomplishment. And now we're rolling into lunchtime, so I get off of here and I get to go eat a meal. That's wonderful.
See, everybody
Perfect.
wins.
Everybody wins.
I'm going to go cuddle Harley, see if she'll settle down. But it's not even crying. It's just sort of like fussing,
It's like, hey, y'all aren't giving me enough attention right now.
I think it's that. I think Catherine's probably like getting her dressed and she's just kind of like, what are you doing?
Well, if you can't go out on a Sunday afternoon wearing the wrong thing. I mean, that's... I say as I wear a t-shirt and sweatpants right now.
Oh, I'm still in my pajamas, man.
It got cold here. Did I tell you that?
No.
It got down to like 52 degrees last night.
Oh, damn. All right. Fall has started.
Yeah. And I think it's only going to get up to like 72 today.
Well,
so yeah,
nice.
fall right around the corner.
Great. All right. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for listening to the show. Please do follow the show or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. That would also be great. You can go to holybatcast.com, find Holy BatCast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast. Again, if you've got stuff for the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can send that to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. A big thank you, as always, to Gaurav Venkateswar. He created our theme music. His work can be found at gvtunes.com. By the way, just fun, real quick story. One of my Batman pals, he goes, "Hey man, can you send me the file of your theme music because I want to put it on my Batman playlist?" I was like, "Yes." So, Gaurav, if you're listening, go you. Anyway, do a little shopping online this week. Go to manscaped.com. If you're going to buy something, please use the promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. That'll do it. On behalf of Jamie, I've been Andy. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
Man, give that child a hug already. Dang.
I know. Well, first I got to go to the bathroom, so it's my turn.
But you know what? That's the same. I can't get mad at her because that's the same reaction I had when Zaslav canceled Batgirl.
Yeah, it's the same reaction I have waking up every morning. So it's genetic.